Welcome, everybody. My name is Kartik. I'm one of the co-founders of ETH Global, and I want to welcome all of you to the UniGrants Summit. We have an amazing day planned for all of you, and I can't wait to get started with all the amazing talks we have lined up. But before we do that, I want to just give a quick introduction to everybody who's joining us on ethglobal.tv for the first time. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, we're going to be using ethglobal.tv to manage the whole event, where you get to watch the live stream and all the participants and our speakers are going to be accessible here on the chat. So if you have any questions for any of our speakers as the talks happen, or if you would like to clarify anything or kind of dig into anything from what they say, you can type your questions up in the chat, and we'll be able to relay them to you, to the speakers, and have them address those questions to you to the live stream. So be sure to sign in. Everybody who also signs in will get a POAP NFT tokens for being a participant at the summit, and looking forward to seeing how everybody gets excited about all the talks that we have. So we have a lot of talks that we're going to be going through that cover what's happening on the Uniswap ecosystem. So I want to give a quick overview to everybody here. We're going to kick the day off by talking about some meta governance structures, and Jeremy's going to come and talk about that shortly. We're going to have Sherry talk about Serv.ETH. Dimitar is going to talk about anti-fraud and phishing, from how Web2 and Web3 differ. Then we'll have Kevin talk about the universal Web3 integration standard. And then Ben from Rabbithole will talk about how you get more involved in the community and how Rabbithole works. Then we'll have Lenan cover protocol KOLs. There's going to be a lot to dig in there. And we'll have Dave going over just the benefits of Uniswap Sidepairs and how you can think about Auto-Arbitrage. Then we'll have Prabhav talk about the routing building blocks for Uniswap and all the interesting things you can do there. Natasha will be talking about Safeguard. And then we'll have our final talk with Boris, who's going to talk about the stable, and we'll be covering how the UGP subcommittees are set up and how they can all work together with each other. So before we kick us into the very first talk, I want to welcome Boris from the grants program to share a few words about today, what we have in plan, and also UGP altogether. So without further ado, let's welcome Boris.
So hi guys, my name is Boris. I'm from the Uniswap grant program. To be more specific, I'm the lead of the stable, subcommittee focused on the individuals and the community. Maybe you're familiar with the Uniswap grant program, or maybe you're not, but what Uniswap grant program does in general, we try to help the Uniswap core team grow the Uniswap ecosystem. And that does not mean only developer tools. We also take care of the governance, of the community, of the user experience, and everything in between. First of all, thank you, ETH Global team, for organizing this. Thank you for having us. And for the hackathon, just quick 2 sentences. We had an amazing response to our tasks for the hackathon. We kind of left them open so anybody could build whatever they want, but we have over 40 teams building on top of Uniswap, which is amazing. I took a quick look at the preliminary results and I saw different teams building on V2, V3, combining the two, really interesting projects, and hopefully some of the hackers are today with us in the chat. If you want to continue working on your hack, you really enjoy working on that project and want to take it to the next step, feel free to reach out to the Uniswap grant program. We'll jump into the call, we'll share some ideas, it will be great. As for the talks, as already mentioned, some great talks today. I'll be the last one, so you'll see my face again. But before that, we'll cover some anti-phishing, a little bit about governance, Serv.ETH team, which is, as far as I know, the only first-level support team working in DeFi space 24/7 in our Discord. Shout out to them. And yeah, all the other talks will be great. Really excited. Get your drink and snacks and enjoy the talks.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Boris. And looks like with that, we are ready to kick us off with our first talk of the day. So without further ado, let's welcome Jeremy to talk about proliferation of meta governance structures. Jeremy, welcome.
Hey, how's everyone doing? All right, awesome. Let me share my screen here. All right, so I'm Jeremy Guzman, and I'm here to talk about proliferation of meta governance structures. So I'm really excited. So quick introduction of who I am. At the moment, I'm a director of tech over at Blockchain Education Network, also the founder of Mass Adoption, and the potential governance champion over at Uniswap, which is extremely exciting stuff that we're doing both at the Ben end and on the Uniswap end, something that I'll touch on later on in the presentation. So ultimately, the bigger question here, right, as we've been seeing throughout all DeFi, is this emerging conversation of governance, meta governance. How can the community be more involved or earn participation, merits, things of that nature? And ultimately, this goes down to the simple question of what is governance, right? So the concept of governance has basically evolved to have like an array of definitions, right? And I think we could consolidate them into three pretty basic fundamental rules, right? So number one is organizational frameworks that rely on the use of mechanisms, individuals, or basically both to carry out a set of rules, policies, and processes, right? The second definition or second principle, if you will, is governance is the coordination of an organization's resources and actions through the use of contracts, explicitly and implicitly, something very interesting that we'll see as we transition into meta governance structures. And lastly is the execution of all decisions and actions in transparent fashion, right? And this is to ensure the accountability of all participants and stakeholders while affirming organizational legitimacy and overarching vision, right? So it's pretty basic, pretty streamlined tenets, right? But now what begets of this is what determines or what dictates good governance, right? And that's something by and large has been in the conversation or circulating conversation within the crypto space for quite some time now. Now, good governance tends to abide by 5 precepts, right? One is legitimacy and voice. Basically what this means is that the organization in question decides or should be reached, and decisions should be reached, excuse me, by broad consensus, right? And this is done through open, frictionless communication or opportunities of communication to further stimulate participation within by the stakeholders or other participants within the community. 2 is the direction of the organization or direction of this said entity, right? So everyone needs to be all hands on deck, right? In terms of understanding the organization or entity's culture. There's the social complexities that lie within, short and long-term goals, et cetera, right? So decisions have to be made with the overarching objectives in mind, as well as the anticipated roadmap and future objectives in line or in vision as well. And thirdly is the performance, right? So efficiency and effectiveness in the name of the organization is basically the name of the game, right? So participants and stakeholders, they have to utilize any available resources to execute fruitful developments that will benefit the protocol organizations at hand, right? And this trickles down into the 4th precept, which is transparency, right? So there has to be an internal and external exhibition of accountability that's further reinforced by a democratic process, whether that be in voting or that be reaching consensus of some sort. Transparency, by and large, is the key to efficient performance, right? Or efficient understanding. And then lastly is just to be fair, right? Good governance is to be fair, in which organizations need to be steered by a rule-based decisions, not of discretion. Discretion-based decision ultimately stimulates or provokes misunderstanding or misconstruement of certain proposed concepts. It really isn't a good way to organize or coordinate an organization, right? So this in turn produces equity and equality for all participants and stakeholders. So As organizations grow, we've seen that internal structures begin to consolidate or kind of constrict into these hierarchical shapes or structures, right? And participants begin reporting to a higher up of some sort, whoever the president, administrator, CEO. We've all seen it in traditional business or financial architectures, right? Now, the issue with these traditional structures is that as they grow or as they start becoming more hierarchical, the bottom base or the foundation begins to decay or starts to carry the brunt of majority of the work or the responsibility, and by and large have limited growth opportunity or organizational equity, right? So that's a big problem, and it's no bueno, right? So let's go ahead and transition into the meta structure, which I think capitalizes and if not improves this archaic hierarchical approach to governance, right? So basically, as we can see here, it's a participation for all kind of ideation or idea, right? So meta governance aims to alleviate or potentially solve this problem of a centralized governance concept, right? So unlike its traditional counterpart, meta governance tends to adhere to like a flat structure, right? So as we saw before, it's a hierarchical, it's a top down or up down, whichever way you want to really label it. But meta governance kind of eliminates that structure and just levels it for a fair participatory capacity for everyone to be have an equal voice, right? So meta governance again tends to adhere to this flat structure where stakeholders consist of governance token holders who actually have a genuine interest in the growth and improvement of the underlying protocol or product at hand, right? So since these tokens are available in the open market, right, gaining an equitable stake is fairly feasible by and large, right? You could go on Uniswap, you could go on any really decentralized exchange at this point and acquire a governance token and begin participating in votes or the open conversation, whatever that may be, right? So by holding these tokens, right, participants now have the ability to manage protocol resources in the form of, let's say, a treasury, and determine collective protocol parameters, whether that be mining rewards or grants, as we've seen in basically all protocols at this point, interest rates, the list goes on and on, right? So they have an active role in the community. And this virtually eliminates, again, this hierarchical structure and creates a community-driven bottom-up or top-down structure where governance power is widely accumulated and further disseminated into the protocol that allows for further implementation, integration, and overall adoption of this said protocol, right? So with this being said, Ben has created this sort of governance structure, and let's go ahead and dive into what we've been up to over on the Ben side. So again, with this being said, over at Ben, we've embraced this exponential growth of meta governance, and we really think that it resonates with our vision and our 10-10 goal, right? We want to grow within 10 years and have over a set amount of members within our organization, membership-wise. And we think that this governance structure will be the next step towards getting to that goal. So basically how this governance structure works is within each meta delegate community or committee, which I'll get into in the next slide, our members hold monthly to bi-monthly calls to further scrutinize and maybe deliberate on forum discussions or proposals, temperature checks, consensus checks, virtually anything that's going on in that said protocol. And based on whatever decision is made or whatever topic of conversation really piques their interest, the committee at hand will then execute an internal vote, right? So by this internal vote, we'll kind of gauge the sentiment. That's what we call is the sentiment check. And we get to see where the committee lies for this particular proposal, right? So varying on the leaning of this vote, and if the proposal at hand that's being discussed upon, it goes to a snapshot vote, then from that internal vote, it will transfer over to that snapshot vote. So we'll vote on that particular leaning. If that snapshot vote proceeds to become an on-chain proposal or an on-chain vote, then the committee will reconvene and discuss the proposal at hand. They'll reinitiate another internal vote, and then they'll proceed to to submit the on-chain with the on-chain vote, excuse me. And we're not just limited to voting. We also assist any emerging collegiate club virtually anywhere that want to become their own delegate to attain voting power, right? So let's say, by example, I was the president and founder of Mount St. Mary's blockchain club, myself and some of my colleagues. And let's say we wanted to delegate ourselves as a delegate on Uniswap, right? But unfortunately, we don't have the capital to acquire a substantial amount of uni to really have any real voice or voting power within the community. So we'll reach out to, let's say, to the Ben Uniswap meta delegate and submit a proposal saying, hey, we need some voting power because we not only would we like to participate in proposals and voting and things and the open discussion, but potentially later down the line, we'll also like to submit our own proposal that will benefit the Uniswap community, right? And then on the Ben meta delegate side, the community or the committee at hand will review this proposal, will talk to us over at the Mount St. Mary side and say, hey, we're gonna allocate X amount of voting power to you, and we'll help them establish a delegate that they wish to create, which has been very well up to this point. And as of now, we have about 5 meta delegate structures, and we're continuing to grow. In fact, we might come out with an announcement later today or later on this weekend. But obviously, the more pronounced meta delegate as of now is Uniswap. Our community is very lively, is very proactive within the Uniswap forums, as well as just within the internal chats as well. We're always creating new ideas and new proposals and stimulating the conversation on how can Uniswap as a protocol improve to benefit not only the users, but to also stimulate further growth to improve our overarching experience, right? We lately, our latest meta delegate announcement was with the meta steward with Gitcoin, and we're super pumped because with this meta steward, we aim to support any entrepreneurial endeavors that maybe our student members may have, and it aligns perfectly with Gitcoin's vision as well. So it's a very nice synergy that we've established with that meta delegate again, and we're growing almost on a weekly basis at this point. But with that being said, that's basically it. That's my presentation. I appreciate everybody for showing up, and I'm open for any questions.
Thanks, Jeremy. This was awesome. Thanks for not only a super amazing presentation, but also a super concise overview of what's happening. So we have a couple of questions coming in, and I'll ask them here. So the first question that we have is, how do people make discussions on certain hot topics? Like what's the best way to kind of think about that? And there's another question I'll ask after that. So we'll start with this.
Yeah, that's a good question. Basically, all these discussions, at least once you join the committee, right, is held internally. So we have our own Telegram chat. In fact, we're over at Ben, we're migrating over to what's known as the Ben portal, in which we'll carry out all governance conversations there. But for now, it's all held on Telegram. So for whoever is interested, you'll just hop on the Telegram chat. We basically, again, do these bi-monthly or monthly calls, and we really just have at it. We go into the forum and see what's the hot topic at hand, what's the latest proposal, latest conversation that's being talked about. I guess a great example is Harvard's latest and basically controversial proposal, right, on the education fund, right? That has been a hot topic within our committee for about 2-3 weeks now, and it's been fantastic because we have a lot of turnout for our students. So yeah, the best way to do it is within our internal chat. Yeah. Got
it. And then there's a second part to that question, and that is, what if there was so I guess maybe I'll try to interpret this, but I think they're trying to ask, how do you kind of measure the importance of that proposal? So what if there's a formal proposal that we want to propose, like a fee switch? How does that kind of fall into your process?
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic question. And in fact, the fee switch was a topic of conversation for a little bit too. So basically, again, we execute an internal vote and we gauge the sentiment on our community. Let's call it a community, our committee, right? So based on that internal check, sometimes we even do a pre-check to the sentiment check, right? Just to see where everyone's head is at and where the sentiment is pertaining to this particular conversation, right? So then from there, we'll scrutinize this proposal or the thread in the forum and see, okay, what are the pros and cons to this particular proposal at hand, right? Be it the fee switch or the education fund, and we'll ultimately determine the outcome of where we see may not only best benefit Uniswap as a protocol, but also benefit the students or members or participants within the community to see how it improves their experience as well.
Got it. A couple more questions coming in, and what I'll do is we'll kind of ask some of them here, but we also want to make sure that we're on time for our next talk. So if we go over, I'll just ask Jeremy for you to join the chat on ETHglobal.tv and answer those questions directly. So another question is, and that's from Ryan. There's some university clubs becoming delegators for Uniswap. What's kind of the best way of understanding like where that community is growing and how they're getting involved, and how do I keep up with what's happening? And for context, Ryan is the president of the Blockchain Club in Michigan. Nice.
Well, actually, the Blockchain Club in Michigan is deeply embedded within the Ben culture. So shout out to you, Brian. Thank you for hopping on the call. Really appreciate it. But actually, can you repeat the question one more time? I'm sorry.
So where can somebody go to learn more about being involved as a university delegate?
Yeah, absolutely. Matter of fact, I could drop, if not here, I'll drop the link in the ETH Global chat so everybody could check it out. But again, basically, we have these committees, not only with Uniswap, but with Gitcoin, Decentraland, Compound, so on and so forth. So it's open to all students, right, or Ben members, and that's basically where we conjugate and just discuss proposals and forum discussions, right? I mean, if you want to see a leaderboard on voting power, right, a fantastic platform that I'll suggest is Tally. Tally does an excellent job at aggregating all this information into one dashboard, and you can see the leaderboard, you can see voting power proportions. I mean, it's fantastic. So if you want to check that out, it's withtally.com. Go ahead and check it out, and they have a list of all the supported protocols on their dashboard.
Awesome. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for an amazing talk, and hopefully you can join us on the chat and answer any following questions.
Will do. Thank you for having me.
Perfect. So we are ready to move on to our next talk. We're just going through some quick AV checks, and the next talk is by Cherry V, and she's going to be talking about Serv.ETH. And as soon as we have everything good to go on the AV side, we'll kick off with our next talk. So in the meantime, for those of you who are joining us now, a quick reminder on how everything is structured today. You're all watching this thing on ETHglobal.tv, which means that if you have any questions for our speakers on the chat, you can ask them on the chat box, and we'll be able to relay them to our speakers, and we'll be able to answer them to you live. And similarly, anybody who logs in will also get a proof of attendance protocol NFT for being an active participant at the UniGrants Summit. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Cherry V to talk about Serv.ETH, and I'll have her do her intro and share the slides. So welcome.
Thank you. Good day to everyone. This is Cherry V, and I represent Serv.ETH, the Uniswap customer support for this Unisummit. And by the way, I would like to introduce to you again my team, Serv.ETH support. I would like to introduce to you the services that we gave and continue to provide for Uniswap. As mentioned, Serv.ETH is a customer support service that handles Ethereum-related questions. Serv.ETH support was created in August 2020 after its founder, Mike Azultu, noticed that many Ethereum applications on Discord servers. Originally, Micah tried to help out some of the projects themselves by answering questions, but this quickly grew to be too time-consuming. Unfortunately, some of the applications or some of the dApps don't have the volume of questions necessary to hire their own in-house support team. But they also can't utilize traditional support outsourcing services because Ethereum support is too technical, hence the birth of Serv.ETH support. Serv.ETH started supporting Uniswap during the launch and airdrop of the Uni token in September 16, 2020. Uniswap Discord server was flooded by questions regarding the airdrop claim together with other Ethereum related transactions that needed resolution. Sorry about that. Let me share my screen for a bit.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. Serv.ETH support aims to provide customers first touch on commonly asked questions. We usually hang out on Ethereum's Discord server 24/7 to give technical support to answer Ethereum related questions that are common. We are trained in troubleshooting all of the common Ethereum problems like gas price selection, pending transactions, gas limits, token balance checks, MetaMask issues, and the likes. We all easily learn basics of product offerings and assist users to the best of our abilities with using clients' products. As one of the moderators, we protect the community from spam, misinformation, and irrelevant posts. We also ban scammers from Uniswap Discord. Lastly, we gather relevant information for issues that needed higher level escalation. Being a crypto company through and through, we accept payments in the form of cryptocurrencies like ETH, DAI, and USDC. Other coins are also accepted, except for scam coins, of course. As for Uniswap, you get paid in the form of Uni tokens. We are composed of 7 chat support representatives or professionals, an HR, and of course, our CEO and founder, Micah Zoltu. Most of us have extensive work experiences in different international BPO companies like Accenture, Atos, Convergys, and Teleperformance. Our founder is Micah Zoltu. He is an independent software developer. He works with Ethereum projects and co-authors the original white paper for Augur. Aside from that, he also published a blog post describing an attack on MakerDAO. Our team members like Bing, Cindy, Sherry Ann, Dorsky, Daph, LA, and yours truly are working from home while providing customer support for Uniswap on shifting work schedules 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is Serv.ETH's timeline from when we started last year up until the present. The major events were highlighted on this presentation. These events were during the airdrop of the Uni tokens last year until the launching of the Uniswap V3 this year. We are proud to say that Serv.ETH has been and will continue to be a part of the Uniswap's journey and progress by way of providing answers to the Uniswap community's concerns. Serv.ETH support have handled most of the questions. Questions we handled are mainly focused on level 1 issues. So if we encounter challenging questions that needed answers that we cannot directly resolve, referring them to the right people or channels is also part of what we do to help. And this way we cover more and more people's questions and not leave them frustrated by not getting any response at all. Since September 2020, more than 6,000 questions were answered by Serv.ETH, which was roughly 80% of the total questions we fielded. Upon looking at the pie chart, you can also see that 15.2% were answered by Uniswap, friends, helpers, contributors, and admins, and 4.7% were answered by other Uniswap Discord servers or users. Taking action immediately is what we believe to be the best thing to do, and we can find the light in making efforts to help Uniswap users in getting their issues resolved firsthand as much as possible. On average, there are more than 8,000 active Uniswap users in Discord daily. We've taken on majority of the user questions. Currently, questions are mostly managed privately in tickets, which are visible only to the admins, Serv.ETH support team, and other Uniswap helpers. Upon looking at the chart, you can see that 2,160 or 45.5% of the total questions were answered in tickets. So 26.9% were in troubleshooting channel, 24.3% in general channel, 2.7% in liquidity providers channel, and less than 1% in other channels. There was a lot, but we only saved 3 of our feedbacks that we can showcase on here with you and this Uni Summit. Take short time to read through some of these. If you have any thoughts on what areas we can improve on, let us know. Thank you so much, guys, for your time, and don't hesitate to contact us on Serv.ETH Discord if you have any questions regarding our services. The floor is open for questions if you have any.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that. That was an amazing overview of how you work. Maybe just we'll kind of wait a minute or so to see if audience questions come in, and relay them here. But if not, I'll still ask you to just hang out on the chat on ETHglobal.tv and see if any questions comes in a few minutes. Just answer them directly over text. Maybe one question from my end would be just to understand sort of how you think about tracking, like how do you think about actually managing how effective you are, and sort of how do you actually measure that across so many different channels that you can get support on? So do you have any internal frameworks of understanding how you're doing in terms of managing your incoming requests and seeing how effective the team is?
We do have our manual way in, I mean, 7 of our team members are manually tracking each questions that we answer. We just count them, not really literally tracking everything else. We just count every questions that we answered. So that's how we were able to gather the numbers that we have presented this on here today.
That's awesome. Another question from the audience is, how do you handle technical questions that come in, whether it's with V3 or something specifically? So for example, for the hackathon that's going on, does that overlap nicely with your goals?
For new issues, or for example, for V3, we were able to ask our CEO, Mike Azultu, for any new information. We also asked Uniswap helpers and other admins. We work together with them to be able to provide the right answers for questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that amazing overview, Chervi, and I hope that others are able to join you and help out on Serv.ETH. So thanks again. And with that, we are ready to move on to our next talk. So I want to introduce our next speaker, Dimitar, and because of time zone constraints, we ended up recording this talk, and we'll be able to, we'll just play a video here directly for this talk instead. And if somebody has any questions, Dimitar will be able to answer them on the chat later. So without further ado, I'll let us play the video.
I'll try to keep it fairly brief. My internet identity, alter ego, is Dubsterp. My background is mostly related to IT. I've been working in IT since 1996, back when the internet was accessible via dial-up. And unfortunately, a lot of things have changed, but a lot of things have remained the same when compared to the early days of the internet, the so-called Wild West. And if we compare the digital revolution, I guess, that's happening right now with the decentralized finance systems like Uniswap, and I guess in a way is comparable to basically to the way internet changed our lives 2 decades or 3 decades ago. And when it comes to phishing attacks, users are somewhat protected when it comes to, let's say, traditional or Web 2 based phishing, as opposed to Web 3 based phishing, which is more or less a bit again like the Wild West, unfortunately. And the key difference is, I guess, from what was that? From a scammer's perspective, the chances of getting caught versus the return of investment. There isn't a big danger for threat adversaries and threat actors who fish mostly crypto, because it's largely unregulated, and some authorities don't even know what to do and or are not technically prepared to deal with such kind of internet threats. And again, anti-phishing vendors are well acquainted with traditional phishing methods that are targeting Web 2 organizations, let's say eBay or Netflix or banking. And the worst case scenario, if somebody gets phished in such an attack, what happens is that they either lose their credentials or their digital identity. Let's say if somebody loses their Netflix, somebody could use their account, or if somebody loses their eBay, somebody could bid on their behalf or maybe do fraudulent transactions resulting in money loss or purchasing eBay vouchers. But all of those events are more or less mitigatable by contacting the relevant entity, let's say Netflix or eBay, and up to a certain amount, losses are redeemable. In the banking world, most banks have some sort of deposit guarantees, even though they are more or less imaginary due to the quantitative easing and artificial printing of money, which is uncontrolled and is tolerated by the central banks. And of course, the regional banks do whatever suits them. So even though they're broke, basically, most of the banks, they still lend money to institutions and people alike. But if you get phished, they will at least try to return the losses. And this is the big difference in the Web3 world. If you get phished, basically that's it. The assets won't be recovered. So in that aspect, it's very crucial to target Web3 phishing specifically and tackle it in a little bit different way than the traditional phishing. And I have just a few methods here that I have prepared. It's nothing. Well, we do actually have a bunch of non-disclosure agreements and methods that I cannot show, but the ones I can show you are already uploaded, and they are applicable both to Web 2 and Web 3 phishing. The key difference is that in the Web 3 world, we have to shut down the bad sites as fast as possible and add them to all sorts of blacklists like Google Safe Browsing, just so that we can protect users in almost real time. The other bit that I do in order to protect users, even if a given phishing site has not been taken down yet, is to add the phishing URLs to GitHub, namely in the MetaMask.eth phishing detect repository. And by doing that, anybody who has the MetaMask extension is actually protected even before the site gets revoked. And that's actually the power of open source. Anybody can contribute here, and this is really a nice thing. And this information gets consumed by a lot of entities. So not only MetaMask, but Wallet Connect, Trust Wallet, and other vendors also consume it. So let's go to the methods and dive in. The first one is fairly straightforward. Just use any email that has been leaked. I guess everybody has such email that was leaked somewhere, and simply wait for phishing to arrive there and then report it. The first place to report it is SpamCop, because it checks the URLs and it automatically sends the reports to the relevant entities. Then we can send the bad URLs to vendors like FishTank, URL Scan, or Netcraft, or Fishfort. So the more vendors flag the bad content, the better. And this is again, it's good to have let's say some fish is geofenced, so it opens from only a given country. The more vendors flag it, the higher the chances are it will get revoked even without reports being sent to the registrar. So the other bit that we do, this is perhaps my favorite bit, it's done in real time. The script's called Phishing Catcher by Source. It's open sourced and it can be used to sniff a search stream in real time. And what it does is basically checks Kalidoc stream, which is a service provided by Sectigo, and it matches any weird, so to speak, domain names based on a scoring system. This scoring system uses a bunch of entropy checks and mathematical checks and language similarity checks to check out, let's say, variations of brands that we're interested in. So let's say Uniswap.cc or something like this was registered. The moment the threat actors create a certificate for it, the clock starts ticking because we see this in the certificate stream. So this is a neat way to actually monitor everything that's happening on TLS SSL level, and that way we can have a sneak peek at scammers' activities. The other thing, it's a retrospective check. It's called Hunting Newly Registered Domains. It's a Python script again. It's more or less does the same, but instead in real time it does it for the day before. So let's say today it's the 2nd of July. We grab a file which contains all new files, all new domains which were registered on the 1st of July. And again, if they contain keyword which is interesting to us, let's say Uniswap, we can again observe the results. The other send that I tend to use for catching phishing is URL Scan, and it's very nice because scammers are lazy. They tend to reuse their both hosting, domains, and scam templates. So by hashing a given file, we can experimentally find other sites which have those files there. So that way, even if domain has nothing to do with Uniswap, let's say it's a completely different domain or defaced site, if it has the phishing kit inside of it, we can grab it, as long as somebody scanned it on URL Scan. This is applicable again to file names. So let's say MetaMask logo is a SVG file and it's fairly often used. So we can simply search for this SVG file and find MetaMask fishes. Same goes for hashes. So hash sums of the files. Same VPS. This is scammers tend to reuse a lot of hosting providers, especially bulletproof hosting, like for example FlowSpec Ukraine or CrackSpec Russia. So those registrars and hosters don't usually pay attention to abuse reports, and thus on the same IP address it's likely to find more than one fish. Other vendors like Security Trails, RiskIQ, and DNS Dumpster also allow us to deep dive into the bad guys' infrastructure and find even more scams. So by finding one scam, by observing where it's hosted, we can find even more scams. And the last bit of my so-called presentation, I don't know how the time goes, but whatever. So those are the common ways scammers try to scam users. I'll be very brief on those. So fake YouTube videos, you've seen those. They use botted systems to generate views so that YouTube's algorithms pick it up, and users who are interested in crypto will receive the video in their side view as a related live stream or whatever. And usually there is a recording of an existing event, but they just change the text and it's like, hey, I'm Vitalik and I'm sending you 5 ETH if you send me 2 first or whatever. So this is the oldest scam in the book, and oddly enough it still works. The bad thing is YouTube are too slow to take those down, and it's a constant whack-a-mole game. Bitcoin revolution scams, those are again very common. Depending on where you live, the sites are made so that, let's say if you're in the UK and you open a Bitcoin revolution scams, you will see a famous person who is in the UK, let's say Sir Jeremy Clarkson, or some TV personality who got rich from crypto and whatever. And if you're in the US, it will be a famous US person, and so on. And those are semi-legit because they're always related to legitimate payment services, but they ultimately seek to rob investors, and they then disappear. Fake exchanges and investment platforms, those are the same. Those are a dime a dozen. I mean, there's so many and so much. They constantly spam with them. And they only change the logo and the name, so it's easy to spot them once you have one sample. Twitter verified scams, again, very often seen and unfortunately hard to tackle. Twitter is late with what can you do? It's useful to monitor those because that way we can see the URLs used by the scammers and nuke them and report them. They do all sorts of trickery, like they find a legitimate tweet by a legitimate crypto person and they use reply scam with stolen verified accounts so that it looks like as if the same person replied to their own tweet, but it's actually a different one. Discord DM unsolicited spam. So again, very often, every day we have spam in Discord. We try to warn users. We have all sorts of warning messages like don't do this, don't do that. But users ignore it, and in the end we constantly spam with this thing, and it doesn't really help. What can you do? Fake ICOs. Those are, well, again, from 2017 nothing has changed, but people still fall for them. Well, some of them are pretty complex and have like approval trickery and other hidden functions that can still rob you and rug pull you, so always be careful. And the fake Uniswap nodes, that's like resynchronize your wallet or whatever fake reason to enter your seed phrase. Never enter your seed phrase. Compromised device, this is the tough one. Well, if your computer, tablet or iPhone gets hacked and you use it to trade crypto, it's a matter of time that you will be robbed. And unfortunately, usually very high profile targets are victim of this. So it's spear phishing plus whaling. So whaling is like phishing but targeting very rich people. And the last vector, I guess, is fake hardware wallet supports, which make you enter again your phrase. SIM swapping is very dangerous, but only if you use two-factor authentication with GSM. social engineering attacks. This is again similar to the Discord, the spam, but can vary. Fake wallets and Google Play Store apps, very big vector for scammers to operate, and unfortunately hard to take down. And the last, I think, piece is fake forms in Google Forms or other forms, which are like, hey, do you want to participate in this airdrop? Enter your stuff here and you're good to go. So those are the common ways scammers try to scam users. Of course, the list is not comprehensive, and we try to circumvent the fraudsters as much as we can, but it really is a constant whack-a-mole game. So thank you for the support and for your time, and I hope this has been at least to some extent useful. Cheers.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dimitar. Super interesting overview on all the different techniques people use to phish and spam. We don't have any questions yet from our audience, but also given the lag in terms of the live streaming delay, we'll give some time, and what we'll do is I'll just ask you to join the live chat on ETHglobal.tv. So if more questions come up, you can just answer them directly over text. We are running a little bit behind on schedule, so it seems like you're already there. So this is great. So if anybody has any questions for Dimitar, he'll be able to answer them for you. So what I want to do is quickly move on to our next talk, and I want to welcome Kevin to talk about Polywrap. And Polywrap is a universal Web3 integration standard, and now Kevin will be happy to tell you more. So Kevin, I'll ask you to turn your camera on, and whenever you're ready, you can share your screen.
Hey everyone. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Kevin O. I'm wearing many hats at Polywrap, but in general, I do developer relations engineer, software engineering, and some operations work. So here, today I'm going to talk about our project Polywrap, and our goal is to become the universal Web3 integration standard. So before I dive into the toolchain, I just want to talk about the history for a bit. Polywrap was first conceived at HackFS in August 2020 by Jordan, Caesar, Roberto, and Ori. And it was selected as a finalist at the hackathon, which gave the project a lot of attention. It gave it the momentum it needed to grow into a DAO, which is a decentralized autonomous organization. With 60+ members, we were able to raise funding, attract talented developers, and some amazing launch partners. Some of our launch partners include Wallet Connect, Fleek, Gnosis, 3Box Labs, Pocket Network, Taurus, and many more. Just a note about our launch partners. These are partners that have been helping us during our pre-alpha. And the ways they help us is, reviewing our documentation, helping us with development, doing press releases, and a lot of other things. So yeah, if any of you are watching, any of launch partners are watching, thanks so much. And some other news, we've been working on pre-alpha, and our alpha version will be releasing in about a month. And Jordan, one of the original developers on Polywrap, will be speaking at ETHCC in Paris later this month. So Polywrap solves what we call the Web3 integration problem. So how do we define integration? Integration for Web3 developer is if you want to integrate protocol business logic, let's say like Uniswap or MakerDAOs, like Uniswap swap function or add liquidity functions or MakerDAO's mint DAI or deposit collateral. If you want those into your own decentralized application, that's what integration is in Web3. And it's difficult today because of the tools that we have. And to really understand Web3 integration, we have to start with Web2 and what integration looks like in the Web2 era. So in Web 2, if you're a Web 2 developer and you want to integrate API logic into your application, for example, Reddit, Twitter, Google, or Stripe, all you have to do is send a REST query to a REST endpoint. And for example, Twitter would tweet on your behalf. And it's fairly easy to do. There's a lot of tools for this, and there's a lot of standards because you know, it's been around for a long time, and you know exactly where to send the fetch request. With Web3, centralized servers are replaced by decentralized networks like IPFS or the Ethereum blockchain. Protocol, to interact with protocols, what protocol developers have done is create SDKs that you can integrate into your decentralized application. And most of these SDKs are written in JavaScript. So all the business logic that used to live on centralized servers are now bundled into your application, allowing you to interact with protocols, like do queries or mutations. And while this is great, there are a lot of issues when it comes to these types of SDKs, especially with JavaScript. So what are the issues with JavaScript? One, it's not standardized. So if you were trying to integrate, say, the business logic of Uniswap, Maker, and Gnosis into your app, they're all written in different ways. And you'll find that it's going to be difficult for them to be composable. The second reason is that it's not scalable. So when you want to integrate more and more business logic into your decentralized app, you'll have to download more SDKs into the dApp. This is going to bloat the dApp, increase the bundle size, and just make the app run a little bit slower. The reason is JavaScript's slow and insecure. So we all know that in the crypto space and in the blockchain space, that security is paramount to the success of any protocol. So this is a huge factor too. And lastly, JavaScript is not multi-platform. So JavaScript is a language that's written primarily for the web developers. And if you wanted to, say, develop for your app on a drone or some other IoT device, it's going to be a bit harder. So what a protocol developer has to do is develop maybe another SDK in another language. And this presents another issue because now they have to maintain multiple SDKs at once, which increases like the maintenance costs. So our solution to the Web3 integration problem is Polywrap. So with Polywrap, we're trying to take the ease of Web 2 development and how easy it was to integrate API logic into your applications without sacrificing decentralization. So the idea is that you would write a protocol business logic and bundle it into what we call a polywrapper or a wrapper, and then deploy that wrapper to a decentralized endpoint like IPFS. Then your client, when it launches, would download these wrappers at runtime and be able to use the exported WASM modules. So I'll go into more detail about what that all means. And for our example, we'll be using Uniswap. So we developed a Uniswap wrapper. And what it is, and this will be the same for any wrapper, whether it's Uniswap or Gnosis or any other protocol. But the composition of the wrapper is pretty similar. So you have a manifest file in YAML format, and all this does is that it orchestrates the package. Then you have a GraphQL schema file. So wrappers are queried at runtime using GraphQL in your application. So this GraphQL schema file will provide the types and the shape of the queries that you can send to this package. And most importantly, it contains the business logic of Uniswap in WASM modules. So WebAssembly allows for exporting functions that can be used in your JavaScript application. So all of this is done at runtime. You can build your WebAssembly business logic using different language that compiles down to WebAssembly. So for example, right now we have support for assembly script, which compiles down to WebAssembly. And then once you wrote all your business logic and the GraphQL schema, you can deploy to decentralized endpoint. In this example, we're using IPFS, but we also have support for ENS and more support for other methods coming soon. So here's what happens at runtime. Your application launches. If it's enabled with Polywrap, then the Polywrap standard will download the business the wrapper at runtime, which includes the business logic in WebAssembly modules. The WebAssembly modules export the functions like say swap or functions that let you add liquidity, and then they could be used in your application. So unlike a JavaScript SK, none of the business logic is bundled into your application. It's all at runtime. And since WebAssembly doesn't assume running in a web environment, there's potential for your application to use business logic in any type of environment. So today we have support for web apps, but it's possible to run dApps on your Apple Watch, for example, or the phone, or even a drone. And again, WebAssembly, it can be written in just one language that compiles down to WebAssembly. So this could be assembly script, but pretty soon we have support for Rust and Go. So unlike protocol developers creating SDKs, they don't have to create a separate one for JavaScript or Python and be forced to maintain all those. They just need to write one SDK in one language. So yeah, there's unlimited possibilities for when it comes to Polywrap. Today we have about maybe 6 wrappers deployed to IPFS, with the major ones being Uniswap and ENS. But we are going to be developing more, and we're going to have bounties open for people to contribute to the project and create their own wrappers and deploy to IPFS to expand the ecosystem. So now I'm going to talk about the developer experience of Polywrap and how you would integrate it into your decentralized application or dApp. So all you have to do is 2 steps. So the first is to install the client. So npm install at polywrap/client-js. And by the way, this is assuming you're creating a JavaScript application. Today we have the client in JavaScript, but we're writing it for Python in the future too. And second, any protocol is just a request away. So once you instantiate the client, you can call the query methods on it. So here we have a query method, and it accepts one object, which has 2 properties, a URI that points to the wrapper that you want to use. So in this case, we want to use the Uniswap business logic. So we're pointing to where the Uniswap business logic is being deployed, which is ens/api.uniswap.eth. And then in the query property, the value is a string that shows which method we want to use from the business logic. So here you can specify either mutation or query. Here we're using mutation, and we're showing that it's just a generic swap function. Now, building your wrapper. This is if you're a protocol dev team that wants to build your wrapper and deploy to a decentralized endpoint for other people to use. So first, you would define your schema in the GraphQL file. On the left here, we have the type, which is a generic query, and then a generic method with arguments, custom type, and it returns a string. And then on the right, you would implement WASM functions. So what you see on the right here is a language called assembly script, and you notice that if you're from a JavaScript or TypeScript background, it looks very similar. So if you have a TypeScript background, you'll most likely be able to implement something like this. But what we're doing here is importing the custom types that we wrote from W3. W3 is just a custom folder that holds code-generated types that you can use in your WASM implementation. And here we're defining different functions inside that would hold the business logic. And you can customize it however you want. And it's highly composable. So this means that you're able to import other wrappers that are deployed into your own wrapper, which is really cool. So here on the left, we're importing like a generic query from another wrapper that's deployed into our application. And then on the right, we're able to import that query and use its methods. So just reviewing the benefits of using Polywrap. It's multi-platform, meaning that it can run in any environment that can execute WASM functions. It's hyper-composable, meaning that you have other wrappers that you can lean on as dependencies and put into your application. It's fast and secure because it uses WebAssembly. So WebAssembly is a low-level language, and it runs very quickly in the browser. And all WebAssembly modules are allocated their own memory to use. So it's pretty secure. And it's scalable because no business logic is bundled into your application. The only thing you have to install in a JavaScript application is the JavaScript client. Cool. So now I'll head over to our demo. All right. What you see here is the UniV2 swap page, except that our team went through the entire interface code base for the swap page, and we replaced all the Uniswap JavaScript SDK with our own Polywrap functions, which was a huge task. So I'm going to show you how the swap works, but first I want to show you the deployed Polywrap, the UniV2 Polywrap business logic. So we deployed it to ENS, which is the Ethereum name service. And if we go down here, you'll see this is going to be the URI that we ping with GraphQL. And you can see the content that it resolves to. In this case, it's an IPFS hash. And this IPFS is going to hold the business logic. So if I click this, it'll send me over to IPFS. And you can see this is what we consider the wrapper. So it has the YAML files that orchestrate the entire package. Again, it has the GraphQL schema that provides the types and the shape of the queries that you can send to the package. And most importantly, it has the WebAssembly modules, which were originally written in assembly script, but compiled down to WebAssembly. We separated mutation, which is functions that provide write operations with queries, which is just allows you to fetch data from the protocol. So this package is downloaded at runtime. And just showing you the code here. On the top here, we have three functions that are called when you perform a swap. Best trade exact in, swap call parameters, and exact call. And this is what the code looks like in your decentralized app. So here, after you instantiate the Polywrap client, you can call the query methods on it. And we're pointing to the ENS URI that you saw earlier, which resolves to the Polywrapper. And then you can call queries. So here we're calling query, and we're specifying the function that we want to use in the exported, the instantiated WebAssembly module that exports these functions. And here we have a variables object that can hold variables to be injected in this template literal. So if I go over to the variables tab, you can see the different variables that are being put into the query. So I'm going to perform a swap here. Just wait a little bit. And then click this to perform the swap. And then MetaMask will pop up. And then we'll just wait for a little bit for the transaction to confirm. But yeah, what you just saw is all the business logic of Uniswap v2 happening at runtime. So if we open Etherscan here, we can see that the transaction is successful. Cool. All right, well, thank you, everyone. This has been pretty fun. And if you want, you can follow me on Discord, and Twitter is on the bottom left here. Or please visit our website. We're looking for contributors and looking for people to join our community. The community is super supportive. Like if you have any questions with building your Polywrap applications or wrappers, you can just ping me or anyone in the channel. So yeah, thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kevin. That was an awesome overview. I feel like it's been so amazing to watch the growth of Web3 API into Polywrap over the past almost 12 months now. So I'm just super excited to see that that was an amazing demo that you were able to do, and especially at runtime and all the cool things that you're working on. So there's a question from the audience that I want to just ask is there a use case for Polywrap for non-developers right now, or are you strictly aiming this towards just developers for more composability?
Yeah, it's a dev tool chain. So it's strictly for developers, right? We try to think of two types of main developers who want to integrate Polywraps that are already deployed into their applications, or protocols that want to build their own wrappers. Everything's open source. So it's on GitHub right now. So visit our GitHub and you can see the source code. But yeah, it's mostly for developers right now.
Well, hope that answers your question, Dimi. I have a question on my end. What are some of the upcoming, whether they're features or problems or open issues that you still have to kind of iron out? Like, what does that look like? And what kind of things can we expect in the future?
Yeah, one exciting thing we have on our roadmap is what's called the Polywrap Hub. And basically, this is a UI interface, UI to view all deployed wrappers. And easily, it's like a marketplace where you can view them and then integrate them into your dApp and then even test them on the spot right there in the application. So that's coming soon. And yeah, so stay tuned for that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kevin, for that amazing talk. And for any other questions that come up, feel free to ask them here and we'll be able to relay those questions to Kevin. And he can also join the chat and answer them directly for you. So with that, looks like we are running in a couple of technical difficulties. Here we go. What I want to do is introduce our next speaker now. We are a little bit ahead of schedule, so we'll kind of let our next speaker go ahead and we'll just take a quick break after this chat. So up next, we have Ben from Rabbithole, and Ben's going to talk about how Rabbithole works and how to dive into this ecosystem. So without further ado, please welcome Ben.
Thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it and looking forward to telling you a bit more about Rabbithole and how we're enabling the future of work in crypto. Let's see, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Is it showing up okay?
Yes.
Great. So I'm Ben, the operations lead at Rabbithole. Rabbithole is a platform that guides users, for lack of a better pun, going down the crypto rabbit hole, and helps them learn about how to use different crypto applications while earning crypto for doing so. I'm here today to tell you about how we're enabling the future of work. So right now, crypto is exploding in interest. It's gaining more and more mainstream traction, publicity, media coverage, and it's really great. But if you look down and you start digging into the details, only a really tiny fraction of people are actually using crypto products and DeFi specifically. If we look at this chart, there's almost 150 million Ethereum addresses out there. Just under 50 million of them actually hold Ethereum. And then even a smaller percentage of that are actually using the crypto products and the DeFi products that are so important to the ecosystem. If you look on Etherscan, they say that there's only about 200 to 300,000 daily active users right now, which is a problem. You know, if we want crypto to reach its full potential, we need people using these products, and we need people figuring out how to learn to get involved and to contribute, and to really start becoming crypto native users. Now, even for people that want to use crypto products, it's really difficult to do so. There's dozens of projects launching every week, millions of dollars flowing into the ecosystem, whether that's through venture capital money or speculative investments. And this creates a lot of noise. And as a result, projects can't find the users that they're looking for, and users are getting confused on where to start. And if we take a look at why this is happening, the current system is not inducive for people to use and get involved. The memes and all of the focus are on speculation. That's going to perpetuate a certain narrative, and unfortunately, people don't realize that. A lot of people don't even realize that there are applications to be used. If you ask the average person, they think crypto is synonymous with currency. They don't realize that there's actually applications like Uniswap that you can be using that sit at the basis of all of this hopefulness for the future of Web3. Moving past that, even if you do want to get involved, onboarding is scary. Crypto creates a lot of difficult situations for new users. You have to figure out how to set up a wallet, how to make sure that you're using the right platforms. How do you know if this is even a smart contract that you can trust? It's a big shift in having to take on the responsibility as a user that crypto gives to each user, and that can be tough for new people that are looking to get involved. And then from the project side, acquiring users is highly inefficient, and especially the right kind of users. Most of our acquisition channels that we typically go to are not crypto native. You think about ads or Twitter, that's all based in the legacy Web 2 system. It's highly expensive, and there's no real guarantee that those are going to even result in positive outcomes for your project. So Rabbithole is trying to fix all of this. What we do is we create quests that users can complete. Quests are essentially time box challenges where we say if a user goes and completes a certain task or multiple tasks, we will reward them with a project's token for doing so. This solves the problems that we've been talking about in a two-sided way. For projects, we help them increase participation on their platforms and help them find the contributors that they're looking for. For individuals, we help them learn about, use, and onboard into crypto networks, and all the while, they're earning crypto for doing so. This is incredibly exciting, where we've seen great results, and I think especially where we're doing this in a crypto native way. Crypto, Web3 in general, opens up a number of new paradigms and possibilities for what we can do. And we're tapping into those new possibilities for our solution. So we're paying people are earning for learning and onboarding into these networks with projects native tokens. We're using Gnosis Safe. We are actually verifying that people complete the tasks that they say they do. And we're using subgraphs on the graph to do so. And then we have the issue of Sybil resistance. It's one of the things that people often think about is, well, how do you stop somebody from just continuously completing the tasks and collecting all the rewards? Well, we actually use Bright ID for proof of a unique human, so that we know that all rewards are paid out to actually unique individuals. And we've only launched 6 or 7 months ago, but in December. But since then, we've delivered some really exciting and impactful results for some of the biggest projects in crypto. Over 10,000 individual addresses have completed a task on Rabbithole. We've distributed over $100,000 in rewards. And just to give a bit more of a sense of what we can actually do for a project, I'll highlight the recent quest we did with Pool Together, which wrapped up about 2 weeks ago. So Pool Together, for those who don't know, is a no-loss lottery platform. What that means is you deposit into Pool Together's pools, which is essentially functions as a savings account, but you're entered into a lottery so that every week or 2 weeks, someone wins a large chunk of cash. Pool Together had a pool that was not necessarily as big as some of their other pools on Polygon Layer 2 Ethereum solution. And so they wanted to drive new users to deposit into their Polygon USDT pool. We worked with Pool Together to design a quest to do this, and we drove greater than a 300% increase in unique depositors in this pool, which is a very substantial accomplishment. This in turn, when these users were rewarded for doing this quest, increased the number of Pool Together token holders by over 12%, which in our opinion will have really strong impact on their community longer term. So these are the types of things that we're really excited about delivering for both projects and users. And we look forward to doing more of in the future. Obviously, we're here at the Uniswap Summit, so wanted to give everybody a sneak peek of a quest that we have that will be launching in the next week or two. We're not sure on the exact day yet, so you'll have to stay up to date on our Twitter, or if you want, join our Discord for updates on this quest. But we will be partnering with Uniswap to run a quest where we incentivize users for doing 2 tasks. 1, make a swap on the Uniswap platform for any token. And then 2, provide liquidity into any token pair on the Uniswap platform. So we're really excited to be partnering with Uniswap on this. And really we view this as just the start of a much longer term partnership. As the Rabbithole platform grows and evolves, and really as Uniswap's needs evolve over time, we look forward to being able to work together and incentivizing a number of different actions, which we will get into a bit more shortly. So this is just the start. Right now, we're using Quest to incentivize users to participate and contribute to crypto networks that are really early stage. But soon, Rabbithole will be your on-chain resume. So if we take a step back and we think about what quests are fundamentally doing, really we're taking an on-chain action, verifying that it occurred, and then rewarding people for doing it and credentialing it and enshrining that it actually happened. When you think about a quest this way, it becomes clear that there's so many more possibilities for what you can do with this type of process. Really what we're talking about here is building a foundational level of reputation, where we're able to verify actions that took place, credential them, and make them legible and composable all across the ecosystem, which is incredibly ambitious and something that's never been done before, but it speaks to the amazing capabilities that are enabled by Web3. So as the first step in that direction, we will soon be launching skills on our platform. So what skills are if you think about quests are time box challenges where users come to our platform and have a certain amount of time to complete a task and get rewarded for it. Skills are now going to be evergreen tasks that users can come to Rabbithole and complete and earn an on-chain credential, which shows that they know how to do something, they've mastered a certain action, and that they're able to then use to represent that they know this to the outside world. That's really cool, not necessarily in a vacuum, but specifically the things that you can do with this. This is going to unlock very unique opportunities that we're really excited about. So for one, if you think about token distributions, when a project is new, they're trying to distribute tokens to their user base, or I should say who they think is their user base. And they don't really have a good way of doing this right now. Most projects use retroactive airdrops, but these aren't particularly targeted. They cast a very wide net, and there's no way of knowing if those tokens are going to the right people. Our sense is that they're mostly going to people who care a lot more about speculation than the actual communities. So we see a path where Rabbithole can help different projects with token distributions, in that they'll distribute tokens to a user after they have verified that they've provided value to their actual platform or network or community. On the other hand, the quests that we're still doing will be able to enhance their power and their abilities as we continue to build out the platform. If you think about how skills can work into quests, you can only open up quests to certain people who have a specific skill. So for Uniswap, you might only want people participating that are expert liquidity providers so that you can help filter and surface the right people for your platform. So a bit more on the specifics of what is actually possible with an on-chain resume with the platform that Rabbithole is building. If you're a platform who wants to do a token distribution, you could both filter for a certain type of person and based on their actions. So you could only open up your token distribution to expert yield farmers who have both deposited and staked on your platform. That helps you verify that these people are actually, one, the right people that you want in your platform, and two, that they've actually helped and provided value such that they deserve to be rewarded with your token. Two, let's say you're a platform that is, your community has been a bit quiet as of late, and you really want to increase the activity that's ongoing in the governance process. You could use a Rabbithole quest to attract people who have been verified as protocol politicians, meaning these are people that we've verified as having created and passed governance proposals in communities, and you could use a Rabbithole quest to attract them to your community. So in this way, Rabbithole and the system we're creating is really poised to become a talent and reward allocation mechanism for the larger Web3 space. But that's an extremely difficult vision to execute on, and not only that, it's one that's pretty foundational and creates a lot of dependencies for others in the ecosystem. And we believe that's the type of vision that's best to be decentralized. There's a lot of questions that we have to answer internally before we do that. We have to figure out how to move a lot of our manual work right now into smart contracts. We have to figure out how to maintain quality and a certain level of work with the Quest system and the things that the core team is doing right now. But we are really excited because we just announced the first step in this decentralization process, and we're calling that the Pathfinder program. So through the Pathfinder program, we are starting to involve external contributors in our core function of creating and executing on tasks. So there's 4 ways to get involved in our Pathfinder program. You can be a steward, which is someone who goes to communities, creates proposals, and hopefully is involved in the entire governance process to pass proposals to approve Rabbithole quests. You can be a navigator, which deploys subgraphs on the graph, which enables Rabbithole to query data. The subgraph is how we verify that people take actions, complete certain actions, and we can't verify if there's verify an action if there's no subgraph. So this is an extremely pivotal role in allowing us to create new quests. We have the craftsman role, which is a role to design NFTs that can be awarded as trophies to users who complete quests. The craftsman role we're really excited about because it can further enhance the rewards that we're providing to users and really strengthen our community. And then the pioneers, which will create content that guide users through completing the quest. If you think back to the early part of this talk, starting to use crypto products and applications is a really scary process. And we want to provide the necessary content and guardrails that are necessary such that people can use new applications with confidence. Big picture vision though, this is also enhancing our main goal of further immersing more and more people in more and more users and contributors in the Web3 world. So if you think about what we're doing, first, we are creating quests for which that we are receiving a fee in a project's governance token. That enables us to become a governance delegate in different communities across the crypto ecosystem. What we'd like to do with this governance voice is to be an advocate for the users and contributors that we're creating our product for. It's hard for users and contributors to have much of a voice simply because to have a bigger voice, you need to own more and more governance tokens. And that's not easy for the average person to do. So Rabbithole hopes that as we do more and more quests and we gain more and more governance tokens, that we can be the voice for the users and contributors in the larger community. Then over time, as we decentralize into a DAO, this power then gets transferred over to the stewards of the Rabbithole network, who are the actual users and contributors themselves. This enables them to get further involved in governance, to further advocate for themselves, and to help design the Web3 world that they would like to see and be a part of, which is incredibly exciting for us. So thank you for attending and listening. If you're interested in being part of a quest, earning crypto for learning, building your on-chain resume or contributing, please visit our website, rabbithole.gg, join our Discord, or reach out to me directly at Ben Schechter on Telegram and Twitter. Thank you guys, really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ben. That was a really great overview of Rabbithole and everything that you're doing. I think we may have a question there, but I'm waiting for the person to clarify something that wasn't super clear. So in case we don't hear back from that attendee, I'll just ask you to join the chat and answer that person directly. A question on my end is, how do you tie in the activity on chain with Rabbithole and the protocol or any service that you're looking at? Is this tracked? Like, for example, if you're tracking with whether a user did something or not, is that always like mostly done on the front end side, or are there actual contracts keeping track of this thing? And how do you kind of think about all the edge cases for those types of cases or campaigns?
Yeah, so once a user completes a task, let's talk about the Uniswap quest that we're about to launch. I go to Uniswap, I swap a token, and then I go back to Rabbithole, confirm that I did that task. And then on our back end, we query the Uniswap subgraph to confirm that the address associated with your Rabbithole account actually completed that task. So that's one thing that we're involved in that process right now. We're using subgraph data, but that's one thing that we, as we decentralize, like to move into an automated smart contract.
Awesome. And I think this is sort of, I believe, what the last question was touching on. And the question was, are there many subgraphs on a per version basis? But I'm not sure if that makes sense or any clarification. Yeah.
No, that's okay. I think I'll answer this in a few ways. One is that we're clearly early in the graphs development in the larger Web3 ecosystem development. And so, there are times where we are working with the project and there's not a subgraph available for us to use. And so we have to push that project off for a bit. We have to contract somebody out to build that. That's part of the reason we're so excited about the Pathfinder program, is because we can turn that into more of a community endeavor, right? We can have external contributors create and deploy those subgraphs and then share the rewards from a quest for doing so, which is really exciting. Right now, the more popular applications and protocols do have some options for subgraphs. For example, Uniswap will have more than a smaller protocol, just naturally, because subgraphs are created based on their perceived popularity. But we're really excited over time for subgraphs to grow in popularity and for more and more to be created and deployed. And we work really closely with the great team over at The Graph.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for clarifying that. And hopefully that answers Demi's question. I want to thank you again for this amazing talk, and can't wait to see what else comes out of the new Pathfinder program.
Great. Thanks so much, guys. Really appreciate it.
All right. So with that, we are ready to move on to our next talk, and that is going to be on protocol KOLs by Leland. So, Leland, whenever you're ready, feel free to share your screen, and welcome.
Perfect. Hi, I'm Leland, and I worked on protocol KOLs. Some brief overview about myself. I currently work at Galaxy Digital, working on the investing team. Prior to this, I did a lot of freelancing work, helping protocols with design work or front-end engineering. And here we're going to present about Protocol 100, which is a project I built that was funded by a Uniswap grant.
Leland, I think the screen share is not working properly, so we want to just give that a shot one more time. I think we're stuck on a froze. Perfect. And then, yep, everything's good.
Great. So going through the UGP journey, got a grant early last year or I guess early this year, to build out a governance dashboard. And then I happened to get a full-time job. And then so like, as the process turns out, it's like, okay, I will work on it this weekend, I will work on it next weekend. And it turns out several months later, the entire market has moved. And at the time when I talked to Ken, he's like, hey, Ken, I really want to work on a governance dashboard that shows the current progress of proposals, like who's voting on what, how they're voting, how's the vote changed. But by the time I really started building it, the market had moved already. And we have companies like Tally and Boardroom really fill that niche. And then at that point, I realized there's no point in building another, governance dashboard that just replicates what other people are building. So it's back to the drawing board. Like, what's new that we can build that hasn't been built before? And at the time, it seemed like these tools are really good at showing snapshots of protocols. You look at a protocol in isolation, but it's not great at combining protocols together. So the question was like, what's some interesting data that we can show that aggregates protocol data together? And that's how protocol KOL came around. So protocol is a amalgamation of like a protocol plus a KOL. A KOL is a key opinion leader, more commonly in the US known as an influencer, and then we slapped on 100 at the end. And the goal here is to create a list of influencers or a list of KOLs who are in the top 100 biggest influencers within crypto, or biggest influencers within crypto governance. And there's many ways to measure governance. We can look at in terms of like how active you are, we can look in terms of passivity, we can look at like whether you're being active on chain or passive on chain, or this off chain. And so what's interesting here is like, in terms of like, you could be very active on chain by like submitting proposals, and then we can look at the engagement of these proposals to determine whether they're popular or not, and that could be a gauge of influence. We can see, whether you're voting, which is slightly less active than submitting proposals. And then on the alternative side, something that's very passive is your token balance. You could have, hundreds of millions of dollars delegated to you, and yet you never vote at all, but you still have some amount of influence because you have a lot of latent influence. If you wanted to vote, like you would have a lot of influence, but yet you choose not to vote. And so we see in some of these protocols, we have some of the top 5 delegates have maybe only voted like once or twice, yet they still have a lot of influence by virtue of having a lot of tokens. We could also measure influence in terms of like who's delegating to you. If someone quote unquote famous is delegating to you, should that make yourself as a protocol politician like more famous? A lot of university programs have been delegated by Andreessen Horowitz. So the question is like, should we be paying more attention to you because of this? Like, do you have more influence? And then we can look at, whether you have a lot of delegations or not. On the converse side, we can measure influence from an off-chain manner. And so this could be something like more passive, like, are you engaging on social media, on forums? Are you participating in off-chain voting? We can look at like your audience size, like, do you have a newsletter? Like, are a lot of people reading it? Do you have a lot of analysis? And these are a lot like softer, so it's a lot harder to kind of like quantify your influence. So in terms of calculating influence, we can imagine having like a very complex or like well thought out methodology to determine like who is more influential than someone else. For example, we could like look at your success rate when it comes to submitting proposals, your votes, protocols involved in, et cetera. And we can like weight these all appropriately. However, I guess I took the easy way out and it's like, okay, the actual calculation of influence we'll do here is we look at how many votes you've been delegated and we just like times it by the token price. And clearly like, this is not the greatest of methodologies and it's probably quite horrible because some protocols have like, multi-billion-dollar market cap and some protocols are much smaller. And so like, if your medium-sized delegate in Uniswap of course, like your weight is going to supersede and overcome smaller protocols. But I think it's a fun, like memeable metric that we can use, which kind of goes in hand with what I was building here. So let's jump in. So protocol.club. Is my screen still being shared?
Yes.
Perfect. So when we load up the app here, it starts by giving you an alert and along with like a legend of what's here. And so the question is like, who are the governance influencers? Who is within the top 100? And we can select different protocols. Right now we have Uniswap and Compound selected. Let's add Pool Together and Radical. And while we wait for it to load, like we can see, we have some addresses that rank in the top one. This is a rank, this is their name, address or their name from Sybil. We have their quote unquote like vote weight, which is in tokens delegated times price across protocols. We can look at the total number of delegates. We can look at their proposal number, and then we can look at the number of protocols that they're active in. And what's quite profound is across these 4 protocols, it's actually quite uncommon to see someone active in all of them. And actually within the top like 100, there's only one person who does participate in all 3 protocols. So just like an interesting like data point, we realize that like influence is very localized. It is like localized within like 1 or 2 protocols at max. So here we can like, drill down and look at individual delegates and see how much like voting power they have. Some other features here is we can go like search for particular addresses, and it'll say whether they are in the top 100 or not. And we cap this at 100 explicitly because I don't know. I think the fun part about memeable leaderboards that you need to have some amount of like caps to it. Otherwise, like your leaderboard will have like thousands of people, and it's less fun in my opinion. So some interesting observations that I had when I was building this is that there really is like concentration. Like how does this? This method of like weighing, protocol politicians is horrible, because if you look at like Uniswap, huge market cap, or so if you look at like Pool Together, it's much smaller. So I think, ultimately in the long run, like if you want to create a good index for measuring like who are these quote unquote influencers, like you can't just multiply tokens delegated by token price. And we've seen like other like good tools that measure KOLs, but there's a lot more work that needs to be done here. So behind the scenes, this is built using a lot of like some hooks from Sybil. We pulled the data from the graph, and like I guess my hope for this project is that it becomes a meme that people are like, okay, I'm ranked 20 on the protocol 100 list. Thank you, Kartik.
Awesome. There we go. No, that was a super interesting overview. I guess maybe in terms of just kind of understanding how this grows, like, and you kind of talked about initially that you didn't get enough time because of just kind of starting the other role at Galaxy. So like, what are some of the things that you think are interesting, or maybe a better way of me asking is like, what did you think was happening or was going to happen back early this year when you were thinking about this? And then how do you think that's evolved so far in the past 6 months?
So 6 months ago, last year I had built a governance dashboard that would show like proposals and people voting on proposals along with tweets by these voters, to have kind of like a real-time feed of like what's going on. And like if you're a delegate, you could be like, okay, like if you're a delegate T, what is my delegate doing? What are they saying? And if you're a voter, like you can see what other people are doing and how should I behave. Except like later on, several other products had kind of built tools that very fit that niche, such as Tally and Boardroom. And then I was like, okay, I don't want to replicate what they're doing. Let's build something different. so then I was like, okay, let's just build a leaderboard. And this really came around in the last like month or so. And I think where my head's at, like I want to probably find a better way to quantify influence. And like, yes, this is a very like, you can apply a lot of judgment on what's considered like influence and what should be considered influential. But like have some sort of like simple like algorithm that we can weight people. And then my goal is that hopefully it turns into a meme and people can be like, oh, I'm like ranked so-and-so. Because I've realized that, you know, crypto is like super memetic, and like, if it's not a meme, there's no point in putting it. Well, that's not true, but memes make life more fun.
That's fair.
And so like my goal is like, if you can encourage people to participate in governance, and if it's through a meme, I think it'll be helpful.
No, that makes total sense. And I think this in a way plugs in nicely with the last talk on Rabbithole, where you get to see that people are not only incentivized by understanding what's happening, and they get to learn that through and earn rewards for kind of understanding how something works under the hood, but then this sets them up for being more involved in governance after they know that they understand it or how something works. And I think what you're doing fits in really well with a bunch of other initiatives right now that are getting more and more people just plugged into DeFi and specifically Uniswap ecosystem, including the university funds or clubs. So that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for that talk. Hopefully we get to see you again with another update on how it's evolved on the development side. But with all of that, we are a little bit early and I had a schedule. So what we'll do, we'll just take a quick break and then we'll resume everything in about 25 or so minutes when we're back on track. So Leland, thank you so much. And for everybody watching, get some something to eat or drink, and we'll see you in 20 to 25 minutes. All right, everybody. Thanks. Welcome back, everybody. Hope you had a good, quick, short break. And with that, we are ready to resume with the rest of the summit. So we got a few more talks to go, and I want to keep everything on schedule. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our next speaker, and that is David. And David's going to be talking about the benefits of Uniswap Sidepairs. So David's already here. So whenever you're ready, please feel free to turn your video on and share your screen, and we can get rolling. So welcome.
Hey guys, I'm David. You guys might know me as Hitero from the Uniswap Discord. I've been in the space of Uniswap for quite a while. I'm really passionate about it, as the people that have seen me probably know. And I really have the predication that a lot of this is going to change the world. So I'm going to pull up my slides here really quick, and we'll kind of start going through that. One moment here. All right. So Penguin Party is a meta-governance DAO that participates as a governance delegate on the Uniswap and Compound protocols. We operate Penguin Swap, which is an open source community-run interface for Uniswap, and Penguinalytics, which is pretty much just a nice little community-run fork of Uniswap.info from the V2 days of Uniswap. Penguin Party was created with the mission of returning value to the uni holders who delegate to it. With our Uniswap grant request, we receive funding to further develop in-app analytics, automatic arbitrage, manual pathing, and a network topology visualization. So like a visual network graph of Uniswap, where we want you to be able to see the liquidity pools and the connections between these liquidity pools, and get a more intuitive feel for like what these liquidity pools are doing and how the money is moving around. So we have three values that I've tried to stick with throughout my journey in running Penguin Party. And it's really simple. We want to return value to the holders of Uni. We want to incentivize decentralization, make sure no one particular group has a lot of ownership over the DAO in any kind of way that would be bad. And I was, around for the DAO, the original DAO, which kind of failed. And so it's really important that we stay true to these decentralized values and prevent things like that. And lastly, we want to fund protocol development. And so what that looks a lot like is like the Uniswap grants program, which we've been really passionate about, and we think has really allowed a lot of different applications to thrive. So our team is kind of made up of a diverse group of people from all around the world, who've all come together to help build the most cutting edge financial applications on open source software. And we have an ethos of freeing and empowering people from all walks of life. We want to democratize access to these products and governance protocols for everybody, in the third world, the first world, whether you're rich or poor. We want you to be a part of this revolution in the way that we do things. So all of us on our team can be found in our Discord. You can get involved with us directly. We're always available. In this screenshot right here is directly from that. You can see our Discord names. Everybody here is somebody you can PM. And they're all super friendly. So you can always be free to say hi to us. We're friendly people. So what we currently do is develop open source software and public goods to improve the world. We're very mission focused on that. We want to ensure the composability of protocols we operate in and meta govern for the best interests of the little guy. We're focused on several products which are in active development. And so we talked a little bit about Penguin Swap and Penguinalytics. We're also working on something we call ETH.limo. So ETH.limo is an open source ENS gateway as an alternative to Cloudflare's .link gateway. And as well, we are finishing up and close to deploying an on-chain governance DAO that we call Castle. So it's going to be an open source DAO deployment and governance token standard, and it draws from a lot of different primitives that are kind of currently available in this space. So it draws from everything from the sushi bar to Compound's governance standards. It's very neat. So we have a couple of different tokens that we've launched as part of our ecosystem. So we have the Fish token, and it's the main token of Penguin Party. It represents voting power in the Penguin Party. We have Tori, which is wrapped ADI. The Tori contract redirects the underlying ADI's interest to the Penguin Party treasury. We have Crab, and it's wrapped comp. So the Crab contract delegates the underlying comp to Penguin Party. We have Shrimp, which are wrapped uni. So the Shrimp contract delegates all of the uni held in the contract to Penguin Party. So part of the benefit of that is that you can liquidity pool and use your governance power at the same time, which is very, very cool. And lastly, we have this upcoming Castle token. And so that's really exciting, and we're getting close to launching it. So our current roadmap kind of looks a little bit like this. We've finished up this Castle DAO, which we've been hard at work on the last couple months. And our ETH.limo is kind of entering into a testing phase with our partners. So we want to provide an ENS gateway that is kind of a competitor to Cloudflare's solution in this space. And we're super duper excited about that. And lastly, we have the UGP grant stuff that we're working on for PenguinSwap, and we want to kind of commit back improvements to the Uniswap interface. And we've been hard at work on that as well. And so that kind of has 4 main deliverables. So we want to put analytics directly into the application. We believe users should have enough information about the tokens they're swapping and pooling in-app to make somewhat informed decisions without leaving the app. So if you've used Uniswap, you're probably very familiar with having like multiple windows open to try to get graphs and look at the performance of different pools and that sort of thing. And we want to do our best to simplify that. So we've gotten done with graphs for our tokens and swap modals. We're working on stuff like the APY estimations shown in the pool pages, fee earnings, and token price changes in the token list component. We've finished automatic arbitrage. So users should have all the same capabilities as our bots and should be able to route from any token back to that same token and look for opportunities to profit. The app should have a feature to report arbitrage opportunities to users in some way. So PenguinSwap does that currently. You can route any token back to itself, say swap USD coin for USD coin or ETH to ETH, and the app will automatically look for arbitrage opportunities so that you can swap one token for more of itself. And it's very cool. We call it roulette. As well, we want to work on manual pathing, which comes with things like user customizable routing token lists, user-defined max hops, ad hop weights, and manual route selection, which will kind of get combined into the last thing on here, which is the more difficult project that we've had on the back burner for a while, which is a visual network graph of Uniswap's liquidity pool network. So that'll be pretty easy to conceptualize if you're familiar with network graphs at all. Basically, it'll be like a map of Uniswap. So you'll be able to see the liquidity pools, see how big they are. You'll be able to see the connections between these different tokens, and it'll kind of give you really easy instant feedback about which tokens are big, which ones are getting a lot of volume, and those sort of things. I think that that will help people understand the kind of complexity of the connections between these tokens. So I practice something I call Uniswap as a philosophy. So arbitrage creates volume for liquidity pools, and it's the core mechanism for price synchronization that's happening on the blockchain. It's keeping all of these tokens aligned to correct market demand. And so arbitrage in and of itself through barter and trade is one of the core economic functions of society. And this, I believe, is going to revolutionize one of these aspects of our society. So Uniswap represents a fundamental change in the design of markets because it enables a global audience to create new markets in a permissionless way. And that's super important. More profitable trading opportunities arise from highly connected nodes in a network graph. And so users need better and more visual data on this network graph, which is extremely complex. We want to get better analytics data to traders and pools using Uniswap. But this goes further. We envision a world where Microsoft shares and cans of Coca-Cola could be directly liquidity pooled without involving a fiat currency, where all commodities have fair prices determined by globally accessible markets without exposing every single nation to the risk of any particular nation's sovereign currency. And this should be the highest priority goal of our ecosystem, of Ethereum in general. We want to make the old traditional world of banking irrelevant by creating something better. We're able to add value to our users' trades by providing more intelligence directly in the app. Our more advanced routing explores more opportunities, passing arbitrage profits to front-end users instead of bots. We help users feel comfortable with their trades and stay true to our values of democratizing access to these tools. Our goal is to make trading and pooling so simple anyone could do it, because the future of labor is in ideation and speculation. Nobody should be excluded from financial or governance systems due to ease of use barriers. And that's super important. We want to make these things easy so that we can onboard the next million users into DeFi. And so our monetization strategy is really simple, and I try and stick with this as a quote in a way that we run Penguin Party right. We make money when you make money. We want to keep our incentives aligned with the customers that are using our products. And by adding value to their experience, they will add value to our experience, and we're cooperative, right? And that kind of comes down to the last point, which is that we collaborate with and add value to and love Uniswap instead of competing with it, and like something like SushiSwap would do. By being a delegate of Uniswap with a vested interest, and by routing trades through Uniswap instead of our own liquidity factory, we honor the people who created the open source software we use, right? And that allows us to be a part of Uniswap instead of trying to compete with it. We're trying to add value to Uniswap and to the traders, and to govern Uniswap in a way that returns real value to the holders of Uni. And so sometimes that value isn't necessarily financial value. Sometimes that value is in software. And so that is the biggest, most important thing that we can do for Uniswap, and that the Uniswap grants program is achieved, is creating software that adds to the experience of the traders and liquidity poolers and the holders of Uni. And so this is a slide that kind of details how roulette works. And so this is super important for everybody in the system to understand. And it's really simple. It's called triangle arbitrage. So let's say that we have 1,000 fish that we can change for 860 of token X. So 860 token X is 590 token Ys, and 590 token Ys is 1,001 fish. So you started with 1,000 fish, you ended with 1,001. And here's a screenshot on the other side of a trade through PenguinSwap where a user is swapping 10 Tori for 11.2 Tori. So it's $10 for 11 bucks. Not the most profitable trade anyone's ever seen, but it is impressive from a technical perspective. So you can see that there's some interesting look to the route down there. So that's because each one of those things on PenguinSwap is clickable. You can go to the uniswap.info page for that particular token, or by clicking the arrows between to the pair page. And that's part of what we're trying to do here about getting people better info about these trades and about the US dollar values and things like that. And we think that providing the right opportunities to people is super important. So I'm going to get more into the philosophical aim of Penguin Party and what we really care about, because we're a mission-oriented organization. So this is about the fourth industrial revolution, and I am going to kind of humorously call this Universa Republica. So you can almost imagine like a global governance system. So as the 21st century comes into full swing, the internet, Ethereum, Starlink, space colonization, and other emergent technologies take hold, a new industrial revolution comes into focus. A new political philosophy takes shape, one centered on transparency, openness, composability, and open source software. One centered on the abundance of resources that will be available to mankind in its final industrialized phase of society, from private space exploration, global cooperation, and the imminent realization that we must take better care of our Earth and its inhabitants. Something that more equitably distributes value and aligns participants to common goals, something between libertarianism and socialism, with regard to human rights and the prosperity of entrepreneurs. A penguin party, if you will, a political philosophy of code as law. As we move to deploy the Castle DAO, I do so with these ideas that I believe will transform mankind and society in mind, and as long-term goals of the DAO. Firstly, I want to see a basic income for every person on Earth. We want to put crypto in the hands of every person on Earth and onboard the next billion users into the Ethereum ecosystem and incentivize them to invest, develop, and participate. We want to create jobs in the new Web 3.0 economy. We want to see products as tokens. We want every commodity on Earth to become wrapped, tokenized, and placed in Uniswap liquidity pools. That's a pretty hefty goal, but as a long-term goal, that is what I want to see happen, with governance protocols to control the distribution and production of these goods. Unisocks, MTurk, Kickstarter, and others proved this was not only possible, but profitable. And the coronavirus has shown us that we must embrace a new normal in the way that we produce and consume goods. We want all goods to become public goods. And what I mean by that is that the internet is a public good, right? There are corporations that provide various kinds of infrastructure. There's ISPs, there's cable companies, there's a lot of different corporations involved. And of course, those corporations want to make money. But the internet is a public good that really benefits everybody in a very equal way. It benefits poor people, middle-class people, and rich people. And so I refer to that as a common good. It's a public good. And we also care about quadratic decision. So every economic function should become governable, and consumers of products should have more say in the products they consume. People are more important than wealth. Power should be more equitably distributed, and quadratic decision-making is an innovation that prevents governance protocols from being strictly plutocratic. I think that's super important. So Vitalik wrote a great paper about quadratic voting, and I really recommend everybody read it. It's super great. And if you're familiar with Sybil resistance or Bright ID and things like that, you should be familiar with the concept. So on the subject of capsules, as an experienced protocol politician, I've been pondering governance as it relates to protocols for some time, and I've increasingly seen the promise that what we are building in the Ethereum ecosystem is going to transform governments and economies. Cryptography will be used to secure elections. Blockchains will be used to record results for auditors to mathematically prove the validity of elections. And there will be no need for people to wander to polls or register to vote, because participation will be an inherent part of the Web3 economy. Castle is my vision for how optimum governance of a community of people should operate. Through incentive alignment, participants are engaged to communicate and develop products together. It's modeled after the tried and true Republic system. Castle represents the digitization of the idea of a nation state. It's organized on its base level by holders of the token, which we call Castle. The power of the passive token holders is to delegate votes to candidates or themselves and to vote on proposals. Periodically, a function is available to be called on the contract, which enables the top X collection of senators to claim seats. Senators with valid seats are able to suggest proposals. They vote internally on whether to create a proposal that passes to the general public to affect the treasury, expend money, mint new tokens, etc. Periodically, an executive is also elected by general vote who can create proposals without having to convince senators. The senators and the executive both have the power to veto each other's proposals, prevent bad actors from gaming the system. This should sound very familiar to you if you live in a Western country. Most of our countries are structured as republics, and I think that that is the best way to prevent takeovers or incidents like the DAO from happening. And so Castle is kind of built on the compound governance system. It basically uses multi-level deployment of governance tokens to achieve what is more hierarchical and similar to a republic. So you have something more like an executive at the top, and that would be me as the founder and leader. And eventually I would be, replaced by a vote. Then we have a group of senators who are kind of elected by the common people, and the power of the DAO is coming through the bottom here. You can see that we have various tokens like shrimp and crab that are kind of giving us governance power on other protocols. And so we want to focus on creating a lot of those kinds of wrap tokens and accruing power in a variety of places. And then making sure that we distribute that power equitably through Fish. So Castle, as I mentioned just a moment ago, is a meta deployment and slight modification of Compound's governance system, which Uniswap shares. This makes it compatible and composable with many of the applications that currently integrate access to governance. As well, we plan to publish the contracts and deployment instructions for Castle as open source code so that anyone can build their own Castle. It's of course built out of a lot of open source primitives. It has a Republic-like structure that we believe will prevent incidents like the DAO from recurring while enabling fluid democracy. The DAO for Penguin Party will control all of the dApps that we have created through ENS directly. It has the power to mint Fish, control the transaction taxes on Penguin Swap, Shrimp, Crab, and Tori, to do buybacks, to liquidity pool assets, and to meta govern other protocols, such as placing votes or voting yes or no on a Uniswap proposal. So that's kind of the idea of Castle, and that gets into how Fish, our current token, kind of escalates into a routing token, and it goes through something I humorously refer to as the Fish cycle. And so basically, Fish is planned to begin a minting phase after the DAO becomes functional and online. By voting on minting a Fish, holders of Castle are able to inflate Fish within certain limitations. It's range restricted to a percentage. The percentage is somewhere between 0 and 4%. Is the most that it's allowed to inflate per year. And the reason that the DAO has this power, much like a nation state, is to fund internal projects and make strategic investments in other projects. I humorously refer to it as the Fish cycle, like I said, and it's pretty simple. So Fish are minted by the DAO and used to reward participants in the ecosystem. That might look like a variety of things, such as a basic income pilot program that we're kind of working on, as well as things like paying out bounties to open source developers that jump in and start working with us. And the idea is that eventually those guys that are receiving those rewards are going to expend them. They're going to pool them, or they'll wrap them in the Castle to increase their governance power in Penguin Party. And as that happens, we're kind of continuously through smart contracts going to be buying back the Fish with product revenues, much like SushiSwap, and sending them to the Castle wrap in an unwrap contract, which again operates very similar to the SushiSwap sushi bar, and kind of functions as a way to reward participants in the governance staking contract. And that kind of fulfills a natural cycle of these Fish entering and exiting circulation. And I believe that kind of having that be a continuous process is really important. Basically, it keeps things level and makes sure that it's not just a token, it's more of an ecosystem, and it's more of a functional economy, right? So this is kind of a slide about ETH.limo, which is something we haven't talked too much to the general public about. So I'm going to kind of briefly explain what it is and why you should care. ETH.limo is meant to solve a problem. And that problem is that names are not being resolved very well by Cloudflare, who is currently running the .eth.link service. And if you go to a variety of ETH.links, you'll see that they don't resolve super well. And so we embarked on a mission to try and solve that and offer an alternative. So we offer a decentralized alternative to existing centralized solutions for accessing ENS IPFS content. Currently, the ability to publicly resolve and interact with ENS resources is contingent upon the graces of big tech. We're not big fans of that. Stylish and performant ride in Web3. We use interregional infrastructure to ensure the best name resolution. We have a lot of meme potential. You know, everybody loves riding in a limo. We have a security first design, so there's a lot of strong domain isolation. We have great encryption. We're trying to give back, so the tech stack is being developed with open source and self-hosting interests in mind. We aim to provide an out-of-the-box cloud-native solution for building public self-healing Web 2.0 to Web 3.0 gateway infrastructure. So we have complete feature parity with .eth, .link gateway services. Users will be able to request valid subdomain certificates, like SSL certificates for their ENS projects, which is something, if you've been hosting a .eth, .link, you're probably familiar with. As well, that we're looking for seamless migrations for existing ETH.link projects. It's super simple. All you have to do is update your links to .eth.limo instead of .eth.link, and you'll resolve through us once it's finished up and deployed. So it's not dependent upon Infura. In the later stages, we will be using our own Ethereum client and RPC endpoint infrastructure to provide this service. We want to provide public ENS resolution over DNS, DNS over TLS, and DNS over HTTPS. And we want to be the champions of ENS. We really strongly believe in building a more decentralized world. And we think that providing .eth.limo as a public service helps facilitate the transition to a Web 3.0 world and allows these DAOs and smart contracts to trustlessly update IPFS content in a very secure way, in a very public and auditable way. So it aligns with all of our goals. And it's a nice bit of tech that I think people have been sleeping on. So I promised a tale of penguins and who we are and how we got here. And it's a lot like a bedtime story or a really good dream. So once upon a time, there was a Uniswap airdrop. It was a pretty legendary event. I'm sure a lot of you remember it. It did an amazing thing. It redistributed wealth and it changed the lives of everyone who had been involved with Uniswap in version 1. Some bought new PS5s, some bought new GPUs, some saved their uni, but all were touched by the magic of the unicorn. There were many people from across the world who gathered together in celebration of this most magical event, and they congregated in a most magical place, as unicorns are known to do. The Uniswap Discord. A penguin named David received this airdrop at a time in his life when it really mattered, and this is his story. When I received the airdrop, I was just a regular guy working in a call center at a credit bureau. I've been buying ETH since it crashed in early 2018. I've been in Bitcoin since 2012. I really saw the promise that Ethereum held. I taught myself Solidity in 2017. I worked on some pet projects, but I never really had time what I wanted to do, which was web development. And that's what I studied for in college as a full-time focus. It was near the time of the airdrop when the lockdowns first started. I'm sure everyone's intimately familiar with them, and I'm sure you remember exactly what you were doing when it happened. For me, I lost my job. I lived off my savings, and I wondered how I would fit into a new normal. I was scared, just like everyone was, right? I was really interested in DeFi, but never really actively involved. From time to time, I'd pop into Compound.Finance's Discord. I'd bother Robert Leshner with some questions about implementation, who turned out to be a huge inspiration to me. So thank you, Robert Leshner. I love the way that he deals with the public. If any of you have ever been in his Discord, I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. Silently, I began making small investments. I learned Solidity more fully. It wasn't until the Uniswap airdrop and the lockdown started that I decided I wanted to make a move. When Uni launched, I joined the Discord. I got involved. A particular guy that you all might be familiar with, known as Borfor or Bora, in the Uniswap Discord, really quickly picked me out, gave me the Friend of Uniswap title. I started answering people's questions about the airdrop. It was a really busy time for Uniswap. When governance began, I decided to throw in my hat. Before I knew it, I had 1 million or so Union votes. It was like incredible. There's a little news story over here on the side about it. That's when I realized that we needed a way to decentralize delegates, and Penguin Party was born. We embarked on a mission to change the world from that point on. I created a multi-sig through Gnosis to get people to delegate the votes to instead of me. I created the Penguin Party Fish. I threw them out to everybody that was voting for me. I set up a snapshot page to pass proposals through. We continue to expand. Not long after creating Fish, a group of magical friends came into the Uniswap Discord and they told us they had a problem. They're one of our partners now, Ethos, or previously known as DeFi Hub. They had the idea they could create liquidity pools such as Biddle Arte, Arte Unify, etc. Only there was one problem. Uniswap's interface was only programmed to use specific routing tokens. It's called preferred routing token list. It's a kind of big problem. And so after a lot of debate, I realized, hey, I can create Penguin Swap. This will fix this problem for this customer. I'll add Biddle as a preferred token. And that worked. It really solved that problem for them. So then I learned React Native and got Penguin Swap kind of production ready, and we went from there. And I think I'm coming towards the end of my allotted time, so I'll try and brush through, just get the last deets here and drop right out. I apologize for running over a little bit. But basically from there on, we created all these tokens, and then we supported the Uniswap grants program. And we really strongly believe that Uniswap is going to change the world, right? And we've been really involved in it from the beginning. Our team has expanded from just being me to like 10 people are working here now. I went from being really poor to being, pretty middle class and well taken care of by the community and Uniswap team. And it really changed my life. And I think that for all you developers out there, things like these grants programs can really change your life. And so if you just get involved, you're in participating in these hackathons, those sort of things, there's a lot of valuable stuff happening in this ecosystem that actually is meaningfully changing the world. And it's not just buzzwords and things like that. So I'd like to take a moment just to thank all the voters who supported me, who helped nudge me in the right direction, people like Quora, and the Uniswap grants program in general. It's been an absolute honor to be here for it. I wish I could have gotten more into the tale of the penguins, but I don't want to go over my time too much. So thank you. Were there any questions or anything like that?
David, thank you so much for that amazing talk and for going over how you got into this space. This was super inspiring, and it's been an awesome reception on the audience front. I think maybe the only question would be that I don't think you directly answered is, how do people get involved with your community, and how can they contribute and help you with the mission?
Yeah, so you can find us at penguinparty.eth.link. Currently, that's our homepage, and you can jump right into our Discord. As well, we're in the Uniswap Discord, and I super duper encourage everybody to hop in Uniswap Discord and be active in participating in governance.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for an amazing talk, and congrats on everything you've been able to accomplish in such a small amount of time. Hope to see how Penguin Swap evolves.
I appreciate you. Yeah, and I appreciate the grants program. I hope we can get it renewed and keep it moving.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much. And with that, we are ready to move on to our next talk. So our next talk is on Valve, and Valve is a routing building block for Uniswap. And talking about Valve will be Prabhav. So whenever you're ready, feel free to turn your camera on and share your screen.
Hey, Karthik. Thank you for the introduction. Let me share my screen. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to try to follow that presentation. That was really exciting. So Valve Finance, we got a grant from Uniswap to basically identify inefficient Uniswap routes. So as everyone's familiar in this forum, Uniswap has a pool where two assets are traded, and the price is determined basically after a trade, and arbitragers come in and either bring the price back to what it's supposed to be, or it pretty much, yeah. what happens with Uniswap right now with the UX and the front end is it's hard coded to go through certain tokens. So the tokens are mentioned down here: ETH, USDC, Maker, Comp. Couple of reasons for that. One, these are the tokens with the most liquidity that people are able to add pairs for. And they're also the most well-known tokens. Now, what happens with the front end is when a trader comes in to trade token A for token B, Uniswap V2, and just to make a note real quick, this is all on V2 and not on Uniswap V3. So on Uniswap V2, what happens is even if there's an optimal route that's better, the UX will route the trade through the 6 hub tokens. And what happens there is the pairs that are not part of those hub tokens, the tokens there are mispriced. Then you have these vampire bots coming in and arbitraging them back to reality. And the LPs of these mispriced token pools are experiencing impermanent loss. The other issue that happens with Uniswap is routing is they are focused on giving you the lowest gas fees. Now, this is great up to a certain threshold. Let's say if you have trades less than 500 or 1,000, pick a number, like a small number, this is fine because the gas fees are, the lower gas fees are better for that. But when you want to do a much larger trade, let's say in this example for 10,000 Badger to GRT, you pay for it with a lot of slippage. So the price impact is around 14% because Uniswap just takes one route. They don't do any sort of order route splitting, like for example, 1inch. So you can see in this example, you got about 140,000 GRT, but Badger, 1inch gives you about 160,000. What they've done is they've optimized for returns over gas. And in the next couple of slides, I'll go over that some more, but you see that they can basically, 1inch is a DEX aggregator, so they have the luxury of using multiple protocols, in this case, to give you the maximal return. Here's another chart that kind of reiterates what I've been talking about with gas fees. So Uniswap, regardless of the price, regardless of the size of the trade, will always be the lowest gas fees because they will only take one route, usually 1 or 2 hubs. Whereas DEX aggregators, what if you can see in this chart, as the order size gets larger, they start splitting it, they start doing using multiple protocols, and the gas fees are, of course, much larger. But this doesn't really matter when you have a large enough order that the returns will more than offset the gas fees. And we can see this in the types of trades that happen on Uniswap and 1inch. So on Uniswap, the median trade size is about 1,000 and it peaks around 2,000 later last year. But on 1inch, there's a lot more larger trades happening. And this is a big problem for Uniswap because these are LP fees just going to different protocols where they should be on Uniswap. So the solution that we're working on is to algorithmically solve the routing inefficiencies. Instead of hard coding the 6 hub tokens and expecting, to solve the 80% the problem and just kind of like not dealing with the 20% inefficiencies, what we're proposing is a solution where we traverse the Uniswap graph for all routes, regardless of hub tokens, and give you multiple options to take. So our current grant that we're working on right now is to identify multiple routes from token A to token B, regardless of the 6 hub tokens. What we want to do in the future is split trades across multiple pools. So this is exactly what 1inch does, but instead of going through multiple protocols that 1inch has the luxury of, we can still do this with Uniswap with the multiple routes that are available. More interesting ideas are to actually test and simulate these routes with accurate gas and liquidity information that's real time. Whereas right now we're built our system using this graph backend. And also crossing protocol versions. So there's a lot of liquidity moving to V3. There's still a significant amount of liquidity on V2. And with talks of Uniswap deploying on layer 2, liquidity is going to get further fragmented. So giving users a holistic view of where their trades will get the maximal return. And of course, we can do more interesting order types like limit, range orders, buying every month, etc., that the current UX just isn't able to expose. So here's a quick example of our tool. So similar to the trade that I've been talking about from Badger to GRT, all these routes are Uniswap routes that we've put together. For a small enough trade, for 100 Badger, of course, Uniswap route makes the most sense. But as you get larger and larger trades, just by splitting the order with 2 routes or 3 routes, you're going to significantly decrease the slippage, which, as I mentioned, will more than offset the gas cost. And more importantly, all the LP fees are staying on Uniswap instead of going to other competing protocols. The idea of fragmented liquidity I've mentioned, I just wanted to add more data to that. So if you look at it here right now with Uniswap V2 and V3, there's a lot of trading pairs that are replicated on both V2 and V3. And as you can see, the liquidity is fragmented. So just doing almost like a Uniswap DEX aggregating of routes, you can get a lot better returns on larger trades, and traders who want to, make those types of trades don't have to go to 1inch or a different DEX aggregator. They can do small trades to large trades all on Uniswap. Some ideas that we've also explored is MEV protected trades. So with the advent of flashbots, we've all been familiar with what's happening with MEV. And if you go to explore.flashbots, you will see that Uniswap V2 is the biggest contributor to MEV. There are a bunch of different reasons, a couple like ones that I've mentioned earlier of mispricing of pools that aren't in the hub token routes is a big reason for this. And also using flashbots to hide your trades would greatly improve MEV protection for Uniswap users. Some future opportunities that we're exploring. One of the ones that makes a lot of sense is a unified professional interface for Uniswap traders. So similar to what Coinbase and Coinbase Pro have for professional traders, what we're thinking about is building a unified UX for Uniswap where you can view liquidity on multiple layers, layer 2 providers like Arbitrum and Optimism. You can view it on multiple protocols, whether it's V2 or V3, and also the advanced features that I've mentioned before. And there's a great parallel for that with Quenta. Quenta is a team that spun out of Synthetics that built a better front end that had advanced features that the Synthetics exchange just was exposing. And they're using Synthetics all in the backend. Some other features that we were considering, and this is mostly for future grants. There's, of course, the trade generator that I've just went over, testing and simulating MEV protected trades, the unified front end, live price and real-time data. This is going to be absolutely critical when you need to make trading decisions based on the data that we're providing. And of course, constraint editors, if you want to set certain slippage, gas thresholds, or a number of hops, protocols, layers. As we solve the problem for traders, it just makes sense to look at the other side, the supply side with the LPs. Some of these ideas have been discussed on the Uniswap Discord of the features that the community is looking for. automatic position management, algorithmic. I know Sommelier is addressing some of this. There's also interesting nuggets like supplying only one part of the swap. So let's say you have BAL and MKR, and you just have BAL in your wallet, and you just want to supply that, and you have to wait for some other party to supply MKR. So some ideas there are kind of what CalSwap is doing with Coincident of Wants, basically finding the other side of liquidity for you to add to the pool. And of course, unified front end keeps coming up over and over again, whether it's the LPs or traders having a front end that allows you to view all the liquidity across different protocols and layers is absolutely critical. And then opportunities for you to invest your money. So if you are an LP today, now, this has been on the Twitterverse, on Discord, LPing on the current Uniswap interface is confusing. Where do I set my ticks, etc. And also, which pool should I put my money in? Where is the best return for my money? So those are some of the problems that we can potentially address in the future. That's all I had for the presentation. I can quickly go over our still working demo. So here, what we have is just a basic interface for input and output token. So let's say I want to go from Aave to balancer. I can put in some sort of the amount of tokens I'm exchanging, increase the number of hops, and then say this is the max amount of impact that I care about. So when I do that, it's going to return a bunch of routes. So obviously, it's a small enough trade. Uniswap will be the one that will have the most optimal trade. And as you see, this animated line is indicating that this is also the trade that we recommend. Now, when you try to go to bigger trades, like I was talking about with Badger, let me just do that real quick. So let's go from Badger to GRT. And I'll start with the 100 Badger, and that will show you the different routes that are possible. And again, these 3 routes, maybe even these 4 routes have pretty similar returns, but if you just split this with 2 or 3 routes, again, you'll get a lot more return versus the gas fee you'd spend. Now, if I increase this to 1,000, you'll notice that Uniswap, the route will start becoming a lot worse because they're just picking the hub tokens. But yeah, this is kind of like a quick demo of what we're working on. I'll ask AC to just paste a link to the paper that we have written. So this kind of walks through the ideas that we've had, how we're thinking about it. And it has a lot more technical details of how we modeled our data, and also what we're thinking about in terms of caching and scaling when this needs to go to real time. And of course, we do mention some of the information that I went through with future potential ideas. Would love to get the community feedback on this. If you guys think that some of these ideas are great, what you're interested in, maybe there's ideas here that we haven't addressed. Would love to hear from you guys on that. That's pretty much all I had to present. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. That was an awesome talk and a really interesting idea. We do have a question from the chat, and the question is, what happens if somebody ARPs one side of the LP pool with the other DEX as you're making this trade?
It's a good question. So is this from a different DEX? Is that?
I believe so. I'll ask them to clarify when they hear this in a few seconds, but the assumption is yes.
Yeah, not really sure. We'll have to think about that more. So from our perspective, at least initially what we've thought about is just getting better returns for users, just because just doing the bare minimum, because people shouldn't be going to a DEX aggregator when there's multiple routes available on Uniswap to get from token A to token B. There are definitely edge cases that, as the person has asked about, that we need to address. happy to take that offline and talk more. I think AC is also on chat, so he can, of course, answer that.
And we got a clarification, which was, the context is another DEX in that case. So makes sense. You showed a really interesting demo. I guess maybe, and a question from my end is just what are kind of still the open problems that you haven't figured out that have different trade-offs here, and just sort of what does it mean for the roadmap here for this to be readily available for others to test?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I think in the earlier slide, the first part of our grant was just to identify these routes. So what we plan on doing is now that we have at least a working demo of that, we need to have more up-to-date data on the liquidity and the price information. So we update this like about once a day. What we want to do is get closer to maybe like every 15 seconds or every like couple of minutes. Eventually, what we want to get to is directly connect to the JSON RPC and get real-time data. So you can make these trades and you can compare with Uniswap if you want to. And splitting the trades is just, it's a solved problem in a sense with, how airline companies, move people around. So it's going to be us just trying to figure out what will get you the best return. After talking to the Uniswap team, that's what they're excited about, is can we get them from token A to token B with more of a return than what the Uniswap UX can offer.
That's awesome. And then there is another question that AC is actively answering on the chat, but I'll ask it for just completeness, which is, can Uniswap itself be optimized so that people don't need to go to another DEX or use a alternate service? Like, what about backporting these changes or routes into the main protocol? That's my understanding of the question.
Absolutely. I think maybe it was a design decision on Uniswap's side to say, you know what, we'll just use 6 hub tokens and we will always optimize for gas fees. So they could definitely do this. But as we've seen, like they're pretty busy with V3. And an interesting point to make here is with V3, this problem gets even more complicated because there's active and inactive liquidity routing through ticks. So it would be really exciting to see how this would work with that. Our initial foray into V3 is probably doing what DEX aggregators like 1inch are already doing. They're just looking at what V3 routes are available and just suggesting those instead of us building our own Pathfinder algorithm for V3. But I think it's just, these are very straightforward optimizations that I think, of course, Uniswap could make. I'm not really sure why they would, but of course, they can totally do this.
Well, I hope that answers the question from our audiences. And thank you so much for that awesome demo and presentation. And this is a super interesting problem to be working on. So
thank you.
All right, congrats. And with that, we are ready to move on to our next talk. So our next speaker is Natasha, and she will be talking about Safeguard. So without further ado, please welcome Natasha on stage and feel free to share your screen.
Great. Thank you so much, Kartik, for having me. Let me know, please, when my screen is showing.
Everything is great.
Great. Today I will be talking about Safeguard. It's an application we built for the first wave of the Uniswap grants program. It's an optimistic governance accountability tool that brings a way for governance to retain veto power over any group, committee, or grantees they have within the program. So let me talk about a little bit the background. You know that on-chain governance tends to be a little bit slow. So this, because it requires, a lot of coordination between many individuals within the protocol to pass a proposal or a vote, which is a little bit too slow for managing day-to-day operation or expenses within the protocol. That's why protocols seek to scale, increasing the agility by delegating authority to smaller groups or decision-making bodies, could be multi-sigs, committees, etc. This way of doing things also brings a trade-off, which is even the committees can be secured because of the security that brings multisig. This delegation of power over the funds they give is a little bit like one way. There's no way for the protocol to regain back control to those funds if anything goes wrong. So also there's a little lack of accountability that you can help over them. Much of the protocols, the committees can make decisions, but the protocol will basically agree on the past agreement they did it. So sometimes, let's say, there's a diversification of stuff that the committee can do, but may or may not align with the things that the protocol wants to do. So this project brings a way to help accountability and also change things a little. That's how Safeguard was born. And the solution we came up with was a little bit simple because we wanted so it can be composable with the already existing structure of the governance, but that bring also this flexibility that the day-to-day operations needs for even the committees or grantees, events, etc. So the solution we came up with, we build a permission layer on top of a time lock contract that has a delay, a smaller delay than the overall governance. It could be 1 day or even minutes if you need it. The funds are held in the time lock contract, but they can also be held, let's say, on the token contract as well, and thus maintained through the time lock. There are different ways you can do it. So the committee is granted permission by the Safeguard admin. That could be, the admin can be the governance, can be another committee, can be one executive for the protocol, etc. As you see, like all the roles can be assigned to different kind of entities or persons. So it's really composable to making like work for a lot of different scenarios. So the request that the committee can make for funds can be reviewed. This is done in an optimistic way because if no one takes action over the request that the committee do, it will pass and they will receive the funds easily. It just when there is something that needs to be reviewed or something that needs a little bit more context, they can pause that and continue later or after the review process. For the use cases of this, token holders can oversight committees through governance. Committees can oversight subcommittees they can build, also can oversight events they fund, etc. So there are a lot of use cases that can be made with this solution. For the general grant project, we just thought of these two, but as I mentioned before, a lot of the composability solution that we bring, we allow for like a lot of different scenarios that people can come up with in different flavors of it. So it will be great to see what the community can with. For the roadmap of this project, during March, we apply and receive the grant. During April, we build the smart contract, and in May, we build the front end for it. Right now in progress, we are prototyping the usage of the project with the stable subcommittee. Boris is going to talk about this committee after me, so you can help out to know more about them. In the next step for this project are the audit of the contracts we build. We are currently testing with a small amount of money because the contracts are not audited. After audited, this project can also help like really big funds without any problem. Furthermore, all the repo links are on Tally, are available open source, so you guys can see and work on them, make GitHub issues, or if any questions, or even bring up more solutions to this project. This was my presentation. Thank you. You can help and talk more with me in the Tally Discord if you like. It's a pleasure. And also, if you have any questions about the project, about how it works, I'm here for you guys.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that amazing overview of Safeguard. And for everybody who wants to learn more, be sure to join the Tally Discord and ask the Tally team for any questions or clarifications. Thanks again for presenting, and we'll look forward to seeing how Tally goes live. And sorry, how Safeguard goes live. Tally's live. Awesome. Well,
thank you so much. Bye, guys.
Amazing. So with that, we are ready for our last talk of the day. And I want to invite back Boris to close us off by talking about the stable. And Boris will talk about the UGP subcommittee that he leads. So without further ado, please welcome Boris.
Hello. Maybe you see me, maybe you don't. Let me.
We do.
Yeah. Sharing screen now. Okay. Do you see it?
Yes.
No, I clicked share again. Wrong steps. Present. Okay. So, hi everybody. Nice to see you again. Hopefully you enjoyed all the previous talks. They were really interesting to me, at least. And now for the end, we'll just, something that everybody can, you don't need really to understand tech into the deep to understand a little bit about what the stable is about and what we're doing. It's just community stuff, as you'll see. And yeah, I'll share how we try to empower the community within the stable, what the stable is all about. And yeah, let's start. Let's go to the first slide. Okay, so hi everybody. My name is Boris Stanic. I'm Croatian, and before I started doing Uniswap community stuff, I was a backend team lead for an iGaming company here in Croatia, which means I don't know too much about community management, marketing, or things like that, but I am fairly comfortable with tech topics and crypto topics. And yeah, I've been in crypto space actively since 2017. And right away I started with the community stuff. And then in 2020, I joined as a contractor the Uniswap team by pure luck, as it says here. I don't know really why they chose me. I was just lucky. And then this year in May, the stable was born. And what is the stable? So stable is a subcommittee in the Uniswap grant program, and we are focused on the individual grants. So we provide financial help, but also we try to provide mentorship, technical guidance, connection to the community, and whatever our grantees need. Somebody asked me previously, okay, what is the stable? Is it like the subcommittee? Is it you? And I think the best answer to that is the stable is both the subcommittee in the UGP and its grantees. So if you become a unicorn in our stable, you kind of, you know, share the values that we try to promote through the stable. And natural question is, why is there need for the stable? And DeFi space and crypto space is really specific. There are a lot of enthusiasts and these guys, so guys and girls, sorry, they kind of work for free, really, like they are the best employees you never have to pay. They, you know, they are fueled by their enthusiasm for the DeFi space and crypto in general. And every project should value those individuals. And in my second point, I put here, it is irresponsible not to support those people because you can't really count that these enthusiasm will last forever, or if they, you know, encounter too many obstacles in their work, maybe they'll get frustrated and give up. While with not so much effort, you can really, you know, nurture their enthusiasm, and your project will benefit immensely. It's just insane how much work these individuals can, you know, accomplish. And like, how do we operate? It's really simple. So every one of us in the stable, so as I said, the stable are me and the grantees. We spend unhealthy amount of time with the community. So you'll basically, currently we had only wave one, and we have, so there's 6 of us now in the stable subcommittee. And basically you'll see somebody always online in the official Uniswap Discord. Next thing that we do is we encourage the most active candidates to apply. So everybody is invited to apply, but the problem is they need some encouragement, because it feels to me like they are a little afraid of a commitment, because they think they'll become employed if they join the stable, but that's really not the case. My third step is we just let them do what they enjoy the most and just support them along the way. So we try to find area each grantee will focus on, but there's like minimal micromanagement or anything, because these guys already know the best. And yeah, they already proved so many times. Also, Ken sometimes drives his car in New York City to promote the stable and Uniswap grant program, and you can see the picture here at the bottom. What are the challenges? So this is more for me personally than for the rest of the grantees. The first big challenge is we as a subcommittee, we get Uni tokens, you know, to move forward, you know, to give to our grantees. But financial help is nice, but it's not usually the highest priority. So from my experience, our grantees, you know, they usually have their main jobs, and some people like, I don't know, to read novels in their free time, and these guys love to spend time with DeFi or Uniswap community. What's also hard is breaking the barriers on the grantees' way. One of the barriers is always reaching out to the core Uniswap team, and sometimes you just need to reach out to them. And this GIF at the bottom shows how it feels sometimes to reach them in DMs, but it's understandable. You know, Uniswap core team, maybe they reach 20 members, not sure, but they are managing such a huge project, and there's only a handful of them. So yeah, they have their they focus on different things, don't have always time to respond to the messages. And one of my biggest goal is to make sure the grantees get the recognition they deserve. So all the great things that they do daily, I try to make sure that general Uniswap community knows about them and recognizes them for that great work that they do. Some of the stuff we do as the stable subcommittee. So one big part is the community support. So you had an opportunity to listen to Serv.ETH theme. So they manage a lot of repetitive support tickets, which is usually gas prices and stock transactions and MetaMask issues. However, if you listened carefully, you could hear that Cherry V mentioned that if they get something that they're not sure of, they always reach out to other helpers and friends of Uniswap, and other helpers and friends of Uniswap would be the stable grantees. So they're always there, ready to help. We got a couple of really, I wouldn't say senior level Solidity developers, but close to, and they're always ready to help if they have time. We also do a lot of educational resources, such as guides, FAQs, some tips and tricks. For example, Rachel, which is one of our stable grantees, she wrote a really nice guide on how to recognize scam tokens, because we noticed a lot of people that are new to Uniswap end up buying scam tokens. So if you're new to Uniswap, make sure to check out that guide. And quality of life tools, maybe, simple tool that would allow you to see all the allowances that you did and stuff like that. So our grantees build all those stuff. Another thing we do, I put running in quotation marks, but basically core Uniswap team doesn't have too much time to run the Uniswap Discord, and our grantees kind of run it. It's not far from truth. Community calls, so yeah, we had 4 of them. The 5th one will be June 14th. You can submit your topics for the agenda. We always keep it really open. It was really interesting. For example, on the last one, 2 days ago, we had a couple of interesting projects that are working on automating liquidity providing on V3. And one of them has like insane APRs, not recommendation that you should invest in those projects, but it's really interesting. You can find like nice projects during our community calls. And we also discuss different governance stuff. What should we do next? Not we, but Uniswap project and stuff like that. We also bridge the gap between the Uniswap core team and the community. So yeah, we have a system where if somebody has like an issue that Uniswap team needs to check, we have a procedure how to notify them and stuff like that. Anti-phishing and anti-scammer program, you heard a talk from our guy Dubstar. He's an expert in that field. He's in the internet space for 30 years. He knows all the tricks, and he keeps our Discord clean and saves all the new users from phishing sites. And yeah, last thing we do, but we do a lot more, but last thing I put here is making Uniswap inclusive to non-English speaking communities. So one of our grantees, YG, shout out to him. He speaks, I think, 2 or 3 languages spoken in Asia, and he helps out that community, reports back on what they're talking about, just so we know, and the core Uniswap team, what's going on in non-English speaking communities. And yeah, what is our end goal? So our end goal for the stable is to make community self-sustainable. Self-sustainable, I just made that up basically, but it's a state of the community where if there's a need for something, the community will organize itself to produce a solution for that need. And yeah, that's my definition of self-sustainable community. Also provide financial and other support where it's needed. So it would be nice if you know, governance would recognize if there's some money needed and there's an efficient way to send that money to solve that problem at that right place, or any other help, whether it's educational, technical, whatever. And yeah, we try to make Uniswap community an overall cool place to hang out. So our big goal is to make it feel like your voice is always heard within the Uniswap community. That is why, for example, we let the community choose topics for the agenda for the community calls. And if you join a community call and raise your hand, you'll end up on the stage. You can, you know, last community call, we had almost 200 people. So it's an easy way to share your ideas in front of 200 other community members. And you don't really have to have, you know, Twitter clout to reach that level. You just join and raise your hand. So right now you're probably wondering how to get involved. First step, so I made a nice flowchart. Say goodbye to friends and family because you'll enjoy spending time with us so much, you'll just forget about them. And next step is maybe you already have an idea that would benefit a Uniswap community. And if you do, reach out to the stable. We'll jump in a call and yeah, find a solution for that idea. If you don't have an idea at the moment, just become an active member of the community. Best way to do so is join our Discord. So not our, but Uniswap's project Discord. You'll find the links pretty much everywhere. I forgot to put it in this presentation, but maybe somebody can share it in chat. And yeah, eventually you'll get an idea how to improve the Uniswap community, because there are so many places and ways this young community and project can be improved. And then you'll reach out to the stable and we'll just find a way to make that happen. And for like the last one is a motto. An old Croatian saying is, if you take steps in the right direction, eventually you'll end up in the right place, unless you are on the wrong side of an escalator. And yeah, so first thing to consider is, are you on the right side of an escalator? And Uniswap project is definitely on the right side of an escalator. And our goal at the stable is to always take a step in the right direction. So we understand that we don't have enough, power to really revolutionize anything in the Uniswap. Maybe it happens, but let's be realistic, it won't. But we try to make, a lot of smaller steps in the right direction. Write a guide to help another community member answer somebody's question, or create a cool tool somebody can use, and all these steps will accumulate, and Uniswap as a project will be a happy place. Application form, huge link here. I'll share it in ETH Global Chat as soon as I'm done with my presentation. And for any questions, I'm available. Didn't have the chat open, so I didn't catch any questions. But maybe you can help me out with that, Kartik?
Yes, we don't have any questions just yet, but I think kind of the biggest one would just be understanding, maybe just clarifying sort of what it means to be involved on the UGP side versus the stable directly. So if somebody's interested in helping out in the Uniswap community, are they making a conscious and a exclusive choice of UniGrants or the stable, or what are some obvious things that they can go to the stable for? And how do you think about, how is it just generally set up so that they know where they can go for help for various specific things?
Yeah, so we at the stable, try to work on a smaller project with an outsized impact. So something that you don't need a whole team of developers or a whole team in general to make happen, but an individual can. And if you need, more like guidance, technical help, and less financial help, then the stable would be a right place to you. However, me and Ken, we talk every day. We go through all the applications, and if we see that some of the application would be more suitable for the stable, or that the stable application would be more suitable for the UGP, we just mix it up, and you'll end up in the right place. Also, since we are the subcommittee, it's not like if you join the stable, you will never reach out to Ken, or if you are in the UGP, don't talk to Boris. We are all like a big family, help each other out. We just really focus on different areas. So yeah, use the stable application or use the UGP application. Both will work, will manage.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that was the one question we just got, and I think you already answered that in parallel. So it's fine if you apply to UGP. If your project is better suited for the stable, it will get redirected. Or if you apply to the stable and if it's better suited for general UGP instead of that subcommittee, it will also be redirected to the right place. Is that a good summary?
Yeah, you'll end up in the right place. UGP as a whole is the right place. So a smaller part of it, which is the stable, is also the right place. You can't never go wrong with the UGP.
Wonderful. So, well, Boris, I want to thank you for doing this amazing presentation and giving us an overview of the stable and how subcommittees are structured at UGP. And with that, we are at a wrap. This was the last talk of the day. I want to thank everybody who is watching and stuck around and asked super interesting questions, and kind of engaged with everybody here in the Uniswap ecosystem. So if there are more questions here, we can obviously relay those questions to our speakers. You can always obviously reach out to the speakers directly, either over email or a chat, or anybody on the global team will be able to connect you with anybody that you are trying to get in touch with. And for everybody who pinged us about getting a POAP token for being an active participant at the summit, stay patient a little bit more. We'll be emailing everybody who signed in with a unique link to claim that. So, and we get that question quite a lot. So for anybody who asked that or has asked that in the last few hours, you'll get an email from us directly on all of this. So I just have a couple of last closing thoughts here. I want to just briefly remind everybody that the Uniswap Grants Program is an active program, so you can go to unigrants.org and apply for grants to help make the Uniswap ecosystem better. We kind of learned about how a few subcommittees. We saw a lot of interesting demos on of what the projects are doing that have been given some grants over the past few months, and some of them are incredible engineering challenges. Some of them are incredible community efforts. Some of them are making the Uniswap ecosystem better for new users. There is a whole range of what you can do to bring more people into this ecosystem. So I hope you get excited about that as well. And if you are interested in getting support for anything you're doing, head over to unigrants.org. And lastly, I want to thank the Uniswap Grants team, Boris, Ken, and Uniswap Labs for making this event possible. They've been an awesome partner to work with here, and we're glad that we were able to host the UniGrants Summit today as part of Hack Money. So thanks again for everybody who spoke today, who helped ensure that everything goes according to plan for the summit today, and overall the Uniswap Grants Program for making an amazing effort from the very beginning to where it is now in such a small period of time. So lastly, anybody who is participating at the hackathon, make sure that you are working on any of the final touches for your project. Submissions are due on Monday. So we can't wait to see what 1,000+ of you are going to be working on and presenting next week. So I wish everybody the best of luck with their last few days of the hackathon. And for everybody who wants to track what's happening, we'll be able to put everything on the ETH Global website and Twitter. So to check out more on what comes out of the hackathon, and also for all the talks here, you can just follow at ETH Global on Twitter for all the updates and links to all the specific talks that happened today and throughout the course of this event. So with that, I want to sign off and thank everybody for joining us on a Friday evening. For those of you who are enjoying a long weekend in the US, I hope you have a great long weekend. And for everybody else, we'll see you all next week and next Friday for the Hack Money finale. Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.